Game phase.
Hello and welcome to another stream. For this stream I'm going to be looking at the All Killer No Filler game list for MAME, which is a community created project, and it tries to look at the best games in MAME, but it's kind of a bit flawed. I mean, it's become a popular resource in the last few years, and many people are kind of using it as a be-all and end-all for what's worth looking at in terms of the arcade games in MAME, and therefore excluding everything else from consideration. I consider this to be a bit of a problem. I mean, one thing to keep in mind is the primary focus of that list is joystick-based games, things that were meant for use in a cabinet with just like standard joystick, 6 buttons, maybe 2 players. And that excludes a large number of titles in MAME that require more complex controls, and a lot of those are perfectly playable on a PC. I mean, you've got spinner-based games, and you can play those on mouse, they're absolutely fine. So it's not the perfect list if you're trying to create a list for a PC use where you're just going to delete everything else or forget about everything else that's not on the list. So I want to look at that type of things. I mean, the list was only really meant as a starting point too, and sort of a catalyst, providing a sample of games to sort of inspire you to go and look for yourself to see what else there is out there in the same genres. And a lot of people don't seem to be doing that. Confusing, the list does also include a few games that use rotary sticks. I mean, Midnight Resistance is on there, and to me that's not a game you can easily just play with a joystick. You need the rotary stick. And Galaxy Force 2 is on there, and that's a flight stick and throttle, so it's a bit muddy, but generally driving games and the like are excluded, and there are plenty of good ones of those that I'll have to look at. But also, there are many games that just didn't make the cut, maybe because there are more popular titles in the genre, or more popular titles in the same series. I mean, sometimes there's 4 or 5 games in a series and only 1 or 2 are in there, and that makes sense because you don't want to overload it with different titles in the same genre, but some of the other ones that weren't included are still worth looking at. And so I kind of want to do that as well. And to me, there are games in there as well that are filler. I mean, okay, it's entirely subjective, enjoyment from the game and everything else, but there are some that just like, this is a bad game, why is this in here when it's not this other one? But you're going to get that with every top list. And again, I want to look at some games that I think maybe should have been there instead of the ones that are there. There's a lot of them. I mean, I've built a whole list and filtered out everything else, and there's just so much content. So this is going to be a multi-stream. I can't cover it all tonight. I'll probably cover a fraction of them tonight. And yeah, I want to look at ones that weren't included in the list, really, ones I feel overlooked. And some of them are going to be obvious where they're excluded because of the control scheme, but others are maybe more obscure games that you've not heard of. I was really surprised actually how many of the games I've covered already in these streams aren't on that list. I mean, there's no Data East cassette games on that list at all, and I already highlighted 3 games in that list that are my absolute favourite games. So yeah, at a later date I might also look at the games that were on that list and cover some of those, because people have said those are the top games for MAME, so makes sense. But for April, at least the second half of April, I want to do this sort of April alternatives theme where I'm looking at alternatives to things you might be more familiar with. And alternatives to this top list seem to be, you know, a good place to start with that. And I'm hoping this encourages people to actually explore the library that's available, emulated under MAME, more so than maybe they are. And if people have just taken that top list, the All Killer No Filler list, and gone, right, everything else doesn't matter, reconsider, because there's a lot of good content and a lot of bad content. We'll be looking at both. I mean, I'm going to start off with Porky here because, you know, I've gone for the whole piggy corn t-shirt, and Porky seemed to fit the bill because it wasn't on the list. So I don't think this is going to be a good game. I've not played it much, but it kind of reminds me of those Century CVS games, and it was a Pac-Man conversion. But yeah, anyway, let's get on with the show and see how this one plays. It's a vertical game, so here we go. And I see there were some messages in the chat already, so I'm going to have a look at that. Oh, hey Piana. Gormity Game Arena. It runs in MAME, but without any sound. Or if you mean the technical side of how I emulated it, it's one of the simplest processors. So it required a fair bit of work because it's completely undocumented chipset other than the actual CPU, and even the CPU's got instructions that aren't really that well documented. But if you've got the latest version of MAME, then the Gormity game will run in it without sound, although it does require quite a good PC processor because the actual hardware is surprisingly powerful, even though the game looks relatively simple. But thank you and welcome to the stream. So I hope you can find that and run it if that's what you want to do. I can't provide ROM links or anything else, just, you know, legal copyright reasons and like. So it is playable. It's still marked as not working because of the lack of sound and everything else, but it is playable, as you can see from the videos. But anyway, for now I'm going to look at the arcade game Porky, which so this is a Pac-Man conversion, although it's one where you had to also change the CPU for the what was it? Signetics 2650. So it's not as simple just swap the ROMs one. It's a bit more. It kind of reminds me of the Century games. It reminds me of Superbike as much as anything else, but it's a car and flying pigs, a bit Moon Patrol-y. And yeah, I'm not expecting too much from it, but I thought I'd have a look at it. Good evening, Peter. Thank you for joining. I hope you're doing well. And Bob again with a special day of the week, Laotian New Year. Okay, this has got quite tricky jumps in it, and I've already died. Well, this pig has turned into bacon rather quickly. But yes, let's have another go. So you can jump, you can get the pigs, and I think there's a super bonus if you get enough pigs. And again, it's very, very like the Century games. I mean, it reminds me of Hunchback in terms of the programming. For some reason I can't jump as high now. I need to jump high. That's a bit confusing. When I didn't need to jump high, I could jump really high. But, you know, yeah, my car has lost its jump power. Ooh, there we go. I think they spent more time drawing that score graphics. Laos, South Asian bases. Yes, I have heard of the country. I've never been there or anywhere in Asia for that matter. But yes, I have heard of the place. So it is their New Year, is it? See, here, the car can jump really, really high. Now, this jump ability would be really handy on the part after this, where I have to jump over fences. But suddenly, my car can't jump very high at all. Yeah, I'm going to say this game's got a few design flaws. So, yeah, this one, I'm already thinking, this one is not on those lists for perfectly good reason. Now, maybe there's some protection coming into play here. Some of these conversion kits add protection, but I'm more inclined to think this is just bad game design. You've got to time these jumps perfectly, and this is still early on. I mean, how perfectly do you have to time these jumps? Or can you shoot these things out of the way? Am I missing a trick here? I mean, I do have this weapon. I appear to be firing a sausage? I'm not sure what I'm firing here. But yeah. Yeah, it does still look like a string of sausages. Yeah, I can jump high at the beginning when it's a hindrance, and I can't jump high when I need to actually jump over things. And I can't shoot those. Okay. I mean, there's nice animation on the car. I will insert another credit. I will give this another go. Now, I've played other games with jumping cars, and I'm sure there'll be one or two on the list. This one appears to say... That bomb's already exploded. That bomb had exploded, and that was just the shell of a bomb. That was a speed bump. This piggy's car needs a service. Apparently I managed to get a bonus for the piggies because I died enough to collect enough piggies to get the bonus. Okay. Strategy. Now, do I go faster if I'm more forward? Yeah, I think I do. So if I stay forward, I'm more like, yeah, you have to be forward. Okay, you have to actually be forward to jump over these things. That kind of makes sense. But not there. So how are you doing anyway, Bob? How are you doing, Peter? How are you doing, Piano? How are you doing, David MAME Hayes Hate? Oh, no, that's me. I'm saying hello to myself. Yes, I'm glad to see you joining the chat. And yeah, I've been putting off doing the stream for a few days. I've just not really felt up to putting my face on camera for a little bit. So I thought I'd better get on with it today, really. Oh, and of course, the wolf kills you too, doesn't it? So yeah, it is very much like a Superbike in the sense that if you're further forward, you are going faster. Again, Superbike is one of the Century games, CVS games. And that also had the strange mechanic of you having to pop the balloons with your character and not be able to shoot them even though they were balloons. So I don't know why you'd use Superbike as an inspiration to create another game though. Unless there were similar people involved. But it's not the same copyright at least. Oh, come on. I was trying to slow down so I can actually get the jump after that. It finally stopped snowing. 10 degrees. Can you actually recover from that situation? I don't know if you can actually get enough speed up to jump over the hole if you die there. 10 degrees. Yeah, I mean, we've actually had a fair bit of sun. So everybody's been out and about because apparently we're allowed to be out and about again. Although not allowed into people's houses because that's a terrible thing to be doing. So, yeah, we're not seeing any more snow. I think maybe the snow a week ago was the last of it. Okay. We are on 16 minutes. I'm almost able to move on to the next game without feeling I didn't give this one a fair shot. Look how many areas there are though. Look at that map at the bottom. Look how much there is of this game that I've not seen. Oh, I made it. What is this? I'm jumping over a cactus and into a hole. Of course I'm into a hole. Why would you not just allow me to understand the jump without putting a hole straight after it? Introduce the mechanics gently. That's what you're meant to do in games, not here's a ramp. Go up it. Oh, look, he went up it at full speed and jumped into a hole. That's not good design. Yeah, I noticed it's been quite quiet lately, Peter. Yeah, I saw that email you sent about the Dio prototype. It looks like it should just slot into MAME, though there's already a prototype running on that board. The ROM size is slightly bigger, but I'm sure one of the active devs with direct access can add that very, very easily. That ramp is the farthest you ever made it. Right. Well, if I can make it there again, let's see if I can beat it. Not the whole game. I mean, heaven knows. I'm sure if I wanted to see a replay of the whole game, there's probably one on MARP that probably runs on a 10-year-old version of MAME whenever the game was first added. But that's one of the issues. I'm dying on these things again. The collisions are questionable. I think you need bullet hell collisions in this type of game. You need like a tiny hitbox, not a massive piggy hitbox. Or piggy car hitbox. Because you really do have to be almost full speed to make it. Oh, right. Ramp, right. I've got to get over the cactus, I'm sure. There we go. Can I shoot that? Yeah, I can shoot that. And then I didn't speed up enough for that thing. You have to learn it. Oh, come on. I was nowhere near that cactus. I think the prototype that's just dumped is a lot closer to the final. I did briefly have a look at it, but I don't have a working tree to commit with at the moment. So it didn't seem to have like the glitch on the title screen the earlier prototype has. So I think it's probably a later version. Very frustrating, Pig Moon Patrol main fan. Now, I'm going to say it's perfectly understandable why this game is not in the list. It might have flying pigs, but it's just not very good. Press joystick left to read instruction. Oh, it even says press green button to fire bangers, so it is a sausage. It really is a sausage. Firebanger to destroy. And that's it. That is the whole game. And it says super bonus like Hunchback, which kind of tells me it's inspired by Hunchback somehow as well. Yeah, Moon Patrol is great. This is not great. This is budget Moon Patrol that is not in those lists for good reason. So I will try and find something better to play next game. I did make a massive list, and I'm hoping I filtered it properly, because there are things in this list that I really feel should be in the all killer no filler list that aren't, or I missed them. I need to double check this, because it's not there under that name. How is this not in the list? Oh, okay, it's not in the list. I mean, we can live with it. Alcon, Taito, Toaplan, aka Slap Fight. Also known, as one of the most important shoot-em-ups of the 80s that is joystick based. Why is this one not in the all killer list? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it kind of borrows the power-up mechanic from Konami games, but this is a classic. It's tough as nails. I mean, I'm probably going to do as badly at this as I did at Porky, but yeah, this is a great game. I have looked at this on a previous stream, and again, there are quite a lot of games that I looked on previous streams that just aren't on that list, and it kind of surprises me. But yeah, good fun shooter. Aim shots. I mean, the shots are targeting you the whole time. But this would be one of the first games on any list I created of essential arcade games from the 80s. It's such an important game. Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to try it. I mean, you play as a pig, and there are flying pigs. I mean, it's no Mushy Mushy Pork, though. I mean, Mushy Mushy Pork is on the no-kill list. I mean, most of the cave games are on the list, in fact. I flew straight into the bullet. I think Aikatana isn't on the list, but I think that was dumped after the list was created, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah, Mushy Mushy Pork, unfortunately, is on the list. Well, I say unfortunately, I'm glad it's on the list, because it's a funky game that I have also played on stream before. Now, I don't have any spit there. Is there one with the Slap Fight title screen? You mean a set? I mean, the clone sets have the Slap Fight title screen. Alcon is the US release. Slap Fight's a Japanese release. I can swap it for one with the Slap Fight title if you want. Let's see. There we go. Now, I think the title logo is actually provided by the protection device on this from memory, which is why some of the bootlegs don't have a title screen, or just have corrupt blocks instead of the title screen, because they didn't bother to put the data from the protection device in the ROM, so they just sort of filled it with junk. But yeah, one of the protection features is providing the title logo graphic, and interestingly, Slap Fight's one of those where there are many different versions of the game and different protection MCUs for the different versions, so I think we've got all the no ones dumped at the moment, although there's no European version, but I don't know. Anyway, Slap Fight also has, a little hidden bonus feature. Now, look, my hands are here, my hands are here, my hands are here. I've just got a few bonus features, but look. Now, if you do this, super powerful ship. I do like secrets like that. Really, and then but the problem is it's impossible to avoid anything, so there we go. Let's get some speed ups and have a faster, super powerful ship. You couldn't find Slap Fight. Yeah, you need to power up your speed, Bob. That's right. It's the same with. You just start so slow, and if you die and you lowest speed, you don't stand much of a chance. That is one of the issues with it. Oh, I used the wrong thing, didn't I? I think. Now we have a fairly powerful ship that actually moves quite quickly. Although you don't want to overpower the speed because then it does become quite difficult to control. I mean, you become sliding all over the place. But yeah, that little trick to get maximum power up at the start, if you're bad at the game and you're willing to sacrifice a life, does help. Although enemies will still point blank you like that. It's a great game. It's not without its flaws, but it absolutely deserves to be on any top list. I mean, it's such an influential game. And again, it might be Toaplan borrowing Konami's power-up system. I mean, this is the Gladiator's power-up system, isn't it? But it doesn't make it any worse of a game. Doesn't mean I'm any good at it. Yeah, maybe this MXL got corrupted or something, main fan. But this has also got great music. I mean, it's one of those... You listen to the music, and it's an AY soundtrack, so the recent Amstrad CPC port actually managed to get the music basically perfect on it, because I think they've just ported the same AY commands to the CPC. It's also one that can take advantage, I think, of an extra AY on the CPC if you've got an expansion on board with that on. And then you can have sound effects and music on the CPC version. I think I said before though, the CPC version does not run in MAME, it kind of crashes after about a minute. I think it screws up the screen timing in a way that MAME doesn't like, but actually works on hardware to give the smooth scrolling. Yeah. Let's get my side power up. It doesn't have the secret though, unfortunately, the CPC version, and the frame is a little bit dodgy. But it's sort of difficulties balanced accordingly, so it doesn't point blank you quite as often. Yeah, this is just a solid game, and it's one of those I remember from even the early ports. I mean, I think I played on the Spectrum, I think I played on the Amstrad, the original port. And we've got a glowy bomb. I also remember like the sort of knockoff version Slap and Tickle that came with Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit. Yeah. The different sections. I mean, a lot of the best shoot 'em ups are like that. There are best weapons for each level, and you really have to work out which one is which, and when to change the weapon, and when to ignore the power-ups, and you know, let them build up at the top of the screen. But it is one of those where once you lose your power-ups, you're going to struggle to recover, as you're seeing here. Graphically, it's really impressive too. Well animated. Look at the explosions there. The collision's actually solid. I mean, it's tough. Pre-bullet hell, so you know you do have a big hitbox, but it never feels unfair in the sense that yeah, there was a bullet, you had a chance to react. If you didn't react, it's your own fault. Yeah, this is absolutely a top game. People always think it's a Taito game because Taito distributed it, but it was developed by Toaplan, so it's part of Toaplan's legacy. Toaplan, and yeah, I mentioned the other stream. I thought that Orca were related to Toaplan, and yeah, some employees from Orca ended up forming Toaplan with some employees from Crooks. So things like River Patrol that I was looking at the other week are actually quite important games too. I haven't checked if River Patrol was on the list. With autofire you can fire a bit more quickly. I don't really like to mash the buttons too much. I prefer a slightly slower technique. Hey Casper, thank you for joining. Now, yeah, the title doesn't make much sense, does it? Slap Fight. Or maybe Slap was meant as an acronym. I don't know. Special Laser Armed Platoon. I don't know. It's like LED Storm stands for some laser something. I don't know what Slap Fight's meant to stand for or mean. It is a bit of a meaningless title, as is Alcon, really, the US name. But not all these titles made sense, did they? I don't think you're going to see me get anywhere in this game. Hey the Yoga, thank you for joining. How are you doing? And hey Simon Flibble-san, thank you for joining too. Sorry, I missed your message there a minute ago. Right, sorry, just moving something out of the way so I can see more of the chat. Yeah, I do enjoy this game. I used to be a bit better at it, but I think it's because I'm sort of trying to play and chat and haven't played it in a while and I've forgotten the patterns, but it's a fantastic game. It's absolutely should be on any best MAME game list. That's what I say. Super lengthy, abysmal difficulty playing game. It is those things. It's definitely difficult. It's not too difficult once you learn it, but it's probably more difficult than a lot of the bullet hell shooters, just because it doesn't give you much chance if you mess up. So now I'm going to go with a game that I'm assuming was excluded from the list on control grounds because it uses a trackball, and that is Century 2 and Slither. Now, I don't know much about Century 2. This runs on Taito's Kicks type hardware of all things, and it's kind of a Centipede clone, I would say. But a much more creative Centipede clone. I've got past the first boss on it before, Cow, but obviously not this time. I didn't reach the first boss this time. Are the records meant to persist, Casper? I mean, a lot of arcade games didn't store the records. It might just be there's meant to be a backup RAM area that isn't being saved. A lot of Taito games, Sega games, not Taito, a lot of Sega games did use a sort of capacitor or something to keep the content of the RAM, but maybe it just doesn't. It's not meant to save. I don't know. The problem, I mean, virtual racing is kind of bad in the latest versions of MAME because there's the real TDP ROM might have some bad bits in it still, or there might be still errors in the TDP emulation. So you'll also find you probably crash into invisible things now and again, which does need fixing at some point. Because it's not very nice to see your car flying off at a random angle for no reason. But yes, this is Slither. Now, yeah, the palette does change to a very dark one at times. I'll play this. So you use your trackball to move around, and the movement is a bit jerky, a bit jumpy. That's just how the game is. Probably easier with a trackball, but now you can shoot up or you can shoot down. There's two shoot buttons, shoot up and shoot down. So it's kind of Centipede or Millipede, but with full movement around the playfield. And for that reason, I think this is actually a really good game. You know, it just adds something to the formula, and I'm surprised Atari didn't do this themselves. Because this feels to me like, you know, if Atari are trying to innovate the Centipede concept, this is exactly the way to go with it. But then they, you know, even with the arcade classics release they did, where they tried to make a new Centipede game, they just updated the graphics and didn't really try and improve the gameplay. Virtua Fighter's collision is still wrong. I mean, that's a bit of a different issue with Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter in old versions of MAME, the outer boundary check just reported a random number for if something was inbounds or out of bounds, and so the collisions were kind of random. The newer MAME running the TDP attempts to emulate that, but for some reason the logic is incorrect, so the collisions are wrong but in a different way. I think the wrong in the way they were wrong before was more convincing. Wrong in the way they're wrong now is more obviously wrong for people, but it's never been right. Virtua Fighter, unfortunately. And Wing War's got a problem now where the machine guns don't work. Basically, the machine guns have no effect on anything. So the Model 1 does still only work, and I think some of it might be bad bits in the TDP ROMs because they did have to be visually entered from the decaps. Yeah, don't go near the edge of the screen in this, it will kill you. Alcon is Allied League of Cosmic Nations. That's believable. I don't know if they came up with that afterwards because people were asking what it meant, but yeah, that is kind of believable though. I don't think anybody really knows the game by Alcon. Maybe people in the US, but over here it was always Slapfight. It got loads of home computer ports, even though there doesn't seem to be an official European release. And all the Slapfight sets do boot to the for use in Japan only warning, apart from the bootleg ones, which kind of just say UK or something silly. Ooh, so yeah, this game, Slither, is very much 8-directional, full screen movement, trackball. I mean, Centipede was trackball in the first place. But yeah, this is sort of Centipede plus. And I can understand it being excluded on grounds of the controls being a trackball. But I am playing it here on keyboard, and I don't think it's any less enjoyable. It's just a little less precise. So you could probably put this in a cabinet with a joystick and play it. I don't think it loses too much. Maybe on high levels it would be more difficult to play properly. Nothing wrong with this one. It's got the whole day-night cycle going on as well, which is why it gets really dark at times and then it does become quite tricky to see anything. But that is part of the challenge. Slither was popular in New York City, was it? I didn't know that. It's just such a mysterious game in terms of, you know, a one-off game from Century 2 on a, you know, hardware that looks like Taito's hardware. And obviously borrowing heavily from Atari's game design. But yeah, it was one that was requested an awful lot before it was emulated. People asking about this one all the time. It's like, when's Slither going to be emulated? When's Slither going to be emulated? So it was, you know, at some point a popular game. It just seems to have fallen out of favour. I guess everybody who grew up with it, say maybe in New York, maybe the presence of it in New York is enough to sort of have made it a really popular game. But I'm sure it must have been distributed elsewhere. But no, I got a bit trapped. Hey Mass Ninja and hey Joe, thank you both for joining, and hey Zontar as well. I hope you're all doing well. Switch port since it doesn't support analog triggers. Yeah, I think it mostly does get you pushed sideways a bit on the latest version. There's definitely a bug lurking in the TGP emulation. I mean, Motor Raid, the Model 2 game, sort of has adopted a similar glitch where sometimes you can't hit things that aren't there, so I think there is a bug in the updated TDP emulation that needs to be fixed at some point. Because Motor Raid isn't using a decapped ROM, it's just a Model 2 game that uploads the program instead of requiring a decapped ROM. And that's what we were using for virtual racing for a long time. We were using an adapted version of the code that Daytona uploads, of all things, because Daytona engine actually seems to be an evolution of virtual racing. I guess that makes sense. I mean, it's Sega. We're using the same engine. There's a barcade in Chelsea that still has a Slither running. That is impressive. Actually, that is really impressive. I mean, you would have thought this game would be long gone and forgotten. But, you know, it's a fun game. Now, I see it says GDI Presents. GDI appear on quite a few IREM games too, the early ones. I think World War 3 and a few of the others. GDI is mentioned. So I don't really know anything about GDI either, but that snake went invisible for a bit. I don't know if the snakes are meant to go invisible, but that snake did. Snake Pit's on top. I think Snake Pit might be on the list of possible games to play. I don't think Snake Pit was on the No Killer. No, Snake Pit is one of the potential ones I could play at some point. Probably not the next one I'm going to play, because I want to look at another racing game. I want to look at Lethal Crash Race, or Bakuretsu Crash Race, as it was known in Japan. And there is a dip switch for the region. Let's set it to Japan, because why not? The story's going to be in Japanese now, but, you know, I prefer to play things in Japanese sometimes. And so it's good to see you in the chat anyway. And you know, I always like it when anybody who's been lurking says hello, and it's good to know who's around. So thank you, Joe. It's always good. And yeah, I've been doing all right, Zonto. I've been putting off doing the stream a little bit and just trying to find the right mood. I mean, I sort of put off it for about 2 hours before I went live tonight, because I just thought I want to listen to music instead, and put some music on, put another album on. It's like, I better get on with this stream at some point. Anyway, this is Lethal Crash Race, which is not that menu. A standard joystick-based game. Up, down, left, right. 3 buttons. And so the title screen does depend on the dip switch. Yeah, VR has held up really, really well. Considering how badly a lot of early 3D games feel now, VR still feels fast, smooth, responsive, fresh. It's a really good game. I probably prefer it over Daytona, actually. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping the problems in VR get fixed in the Virtual Fighter. I mean, Model 1 is a platform that really does need to be perfected at some point. And the challenge of just getting the data out of those TDPs, though, to emulate it properly is not an easy one. Thank you, Santo. I really appreciate that. I mean, I don't stream every night. That would be a lot of streams, but I do appreciate you joining. And I noticed you joined and had a little chat with everybody a few times now, so that's always good. Mass Ninja, you still there? How are you doing? Yeah, let's play a bit of Crash Race. Now, Video System, who developed this, are probably more known for their shooters, like Aero Fighters. Making changes or just YouTube? I don't get what you mean, John. Yes, there's a very important bug fix coming to Contra soon, Mass Ninja. I will be covering that when it happens. I mean, there's already a pull request in there, but I'm waiting for it to be merged. Because yeah, the Contra has always had a quite significant gameplay bug actually in MAME. And there's a pull request from an external contributor to Furtek, I think. Is it Furtek? To fix that. So the mines and some of the shots in Contra have never appeared right. They've always appeared in the same place rather than being randomised or at the correct angle. And it turns out there was a maths unit on the board, which is actually the same one found in WC Le Mans and Combat School. That is used to calculate the angle of the mines and some of the shots. So the game was actually far too easy in MAME before. So once that fix goes in for Contra, yeah, it will actually be much improved. There's another bug with the leftover sprites on the continue screen, but the person who has submitted the fix for the mine trajectory is also looking into that. Yeah, Joe, the multiply divide chip. I mean, when you look at it now, it's such an obvious thing because the chip had been emulated for other games and the register to write patterns were the same. It's just, I think nobody picked up on it. I mean, the comments shouldn't be too laggy, John. I've got YouTube set to ultra low latency. So, I mean, I'm glad it's improved for you. But it's usually about 3 seconds. I found that with not just my streams, but if you talk to other people when they're using YouTube, it's about 3 seconds these days. If you're getting more than that, then probably just try, refreshing the stream. But I'm glad it's better for you today. Yeah, the third button I think is just the horn. Now, there's a slight element here where the track is obviously not flat. You can go up the banks, and it's got a different sprite for your car, and I was really impressed by that. This is a one-on-one racing game where you've just got to avoid the obstacles on the track, go with the turns. It's not too complex. It's not got a full rotation layer like the Video System F1 games. It's a good, solid game. Maybe not the best name. It's called Lethal Crash Race. I mean, lethal, you think, really, really dangerous, lethal injection. It's going to kill you. This is actually a fairly casual race. No, I think most people prefer the NES Famicom Contra, Bob. It's one of those things. It's like was being discussed in here the other day with Bionic Commando. It is far better on the NES than the arcade version, and there's quite a few games like that. Isn't Trojan another one? Is it? I think it's Trojan, where the NES version is actually a far superior game. It might not look as good, but the gameplay is much better, and you do get it a lot with NES games and some of the home ports in general, and that is another thing I might look at on these alternative April alternative streams. Is cases where there's probably a home version that is more enjoyable than the arcade. So you might want to consider that instead. Atari did love their custom controls and custom cabinets. I think they wanted everything to be sort of unique and have an appeal beyond... Oh, this is another game you can play with joysticks. But that doesn't mean a lot of Atari games are not on the All Killer list. You look at like something like APB, it's not on there. Paperboy's not on there. Yeah, as you say, Joe, hindsight's always 20/20. It's the same as so many bugs I fixed in MAME. They're just... Oh. So that bug's been there for 20 years. And it was that simple. It's not even just bugs. If we look at the CPS3 encryption, everybody was like, this is going to be worse than CPS2. It's going to be a nightmare of a thing. And it's about 5 lines of code. I don't know why you've got a brake button in this game, or even the horn button. I'm mostly just using one button. I mean, I don't think you can even bash with a car. Speaking of games where you bash with the cars, yeah, I might cover another one of those that's missing from the list in a bit. I hit something. But this is good fun. I mean, again, you've got to really learn the layout of the track, so it's one that would take multiple credits to learn. You can respond to the arrows, but you've got to know where the shortcuts are. I think this game is one that's criminally overlooked. There we go, I won the race. Yeah, APD was a really great game, Carlo. You know, again, it's one of those cases of Atari just coming up with a really original concept that nobody had done before. Yeah, it's a bit like an overhead world rally, Joe, but you are racing against the other car rather than at a time, and so you can get an advantage by sort of breaking into the other car or stopping in front of them and letting them push it forward and trying to knock them about a little bit. I guess that's why it's called Lethal Crash Race. I think there's probably a strategy to not having a bad start there as well. No, it looks like I'm on an elevated road this time. Nice fake rotation effect there too on the corner. This is a bit more fake, isn't it? You know, let's get off the road. Yeah, I never see anybody playing this one, and I don't know why. It's a solid game from a reputable developer with Video System. Far better than other Video System games that aren't good, like Spine Breakers. You know, I put this up there with the original Aero Fighters in terms of good concept, well executed. At least I don't think it's a real rotation effect. It's convincing enough that I'm having my own doubts. I should check. I know Formula 1 Grand Prix Video System is a real rotation one. And that is more like a World Rally, really. And Drift Out. Maybe more so Drift Out. Drift Out's really the early World Rally before Jaleco kind of came up with the whole isometric concept for it. I didn't win that race though. But yeah. Oh yeah, Road Fighter. Road Fighter. Was Road Fighter on the list? I'll have to check. I don't think it was. Road F. No, Road Fighter appears to be entirely missing from the no killer list too. That is interesting. Did I include it on my list of potential games to include? Not yet. That is one I could conclude. Yeah, Konami Road Fighter is apparently not on the All Killer No Filler list. That does surprise me. What's also not on the No Filler list, I keep saying it's no filler list, is Bump and Jump, aka Burning Rubber. We did have a look at this on the cassette stream, because there's a cassette version of it. But to me, this is one of those absolutely iconic arcade games. You know, it's a day-to-ease game, it's a go-to game. It's the case of, you know, the early crash into cars and knock them off the road game. And jump on them. How can this game be missing from a best games list? You didn't like Road Fighter, Carlo? I mean, I really enjoyed Road Fighter. I thought it had a great sense of speed. And clearly it was a popular game because it got bootlegged. I would say bootlegged in the traditional sense, although it was bootlegged quite heavily. But I think the plug-and-play manufacturers must have loved it because there's so many knockoffs of Road Fighter. Well, that was lucky. There's so many knockoffs of Road Fighter in the plug-and-play units. It's ridiculous. In fact, I think that's almost ruined the game for a lot of people, seeing how many bad versions of Road Fighter there are, how overused it was. I think the original is a really solid game. Ooh. As is this, and again, this is just not on the list. If you can manage avoiding crashing into the enemy cars, you get a 50,000 point bonus. Is that this or Road Fighter, Joe? Yeah, this is a great game. And it does with it. I think Bump and Jump is the perfect title for it too. I mean, it was originally called Burning Rubber, but rebranding it as Bump and Jump just describes the game and the gameplay to a T. It's you do bump and you do jump, and you get bumped and you jump. Well, you don't get jumped as much. You get bumped. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to jump. Obviously, this would go on to, I would say, inspire Capcom to do things like LED Storm, Mad Gear. Didn't like Konami GT. Konami GT was the 3D-ish one, wasn't it? It's probably also potentially for these streams because it's a dial control, like you say, and they weren't included in the no for the list. I didn't mind it. I think in terms of Konami games, it's sort of similar. I probably preferred Hyper Crash. I don't know if I don't think I noted Hyper Crash down, but it might be a potential for the stream. Maybe not this stream, but again, I've sort of been trying to build this list for a few days, and there's just so much, and I'm having to double check everything. So there are going to be ones I add to the list over the the next few days when I do more streams. Yes, Mick, this all killer no filler is the batch file on arcade controls, which is where the list originated. But I've noticed that so many people are using it now, and I think there's a hyperspin list for it as well. And I saw a commercial arcade cabinet which clearly was based on the list, where somebody had installed those games and excluded the rest. And it's like, well, I mean, I'm not a fan of those cabinets anyway, obviously, but it's just like great games are being deleted from people's memories because they're not on those lists, and that's kind of not what the purpose of the list was, as far as I know. They were just sort of meant as a starting point. It's like, yeah, this is a good sample of games. There's a wide variety of them. You might find one you really like. Go explore a bit further. Not, this is the ultimate list of the only games that matter in MAME, and every other arcade game isn't worth looking at, which is how some people seem to have taken the list. Some of those things, isn't it? So that's why I'm doing these streams anyway, to look at some of the games that aren't on those lists and go, yeah, if you're on a PC, especially where you've got a mouse and you play dial games easily, they're pretty good. They're worth looking at. Saw is top score. Well, let's give this one more credit. Yeah, I mean, it was originated on arcade controls, and it was for people that really have 2 joysticks, 6 buttons each. Basically, a Capcom fighter setup is what the idea was. Although I do still wonder why things like Ikari Warriors and Midnight Resistance are on there, because without the rotary stick, you're not going to play those. But that's just one of my little gripes. I mean, I guess you can play a bootleg of Ikari, but the joystick bootlegs are very ropey. And also, this Galaxy Force 2 was on there, and that's analog joystick and throttle. So if you're going to include those on the list, then you may as well include Outrun. I mean, Driving games tend to come into form two categories, don't they? There's ones where out of them where it's perfectly playable on keyboard, because it doesn't really mind you slamming the joystick hard left, hard right. It's one of those how it's designed. Whereas if you say pole position instead, yeah, you can't play that really on a keyboard. You have to play it on a dial or a mouse because it's really sensitive. You have to get the angles correct. And the Namco Final Lap games took that to another level and are super sensitive. You oversteer, you just spin out. But yeah, this was Bump and Jump Burning Rubber, and I think it should probably be on the list. WC Le Mans is a good fun one. I mainly played the ports rather than the arcade version, but I did enjoy that one, Carlo. In terms of the games on that hardware type, it's far better than the Hot Chase, which just seems like a complete mess. Mass Ninja, have you been talking to Aaron about the Shinobi sound? I can't remember if it was you talking to him on the report, because there's still things on MAME testers about the cymbals not sounding quite right with the latest changes. Yeah, the arcade controls topic hasn't been updated in a while. Some of these in this list are definitely ones that were added to MAME after that list was made. But any top list is always going to be subjective. You could say, drop this game, and somebody go, that's my favourite game, you can't drop it. I mean, I had some input into the list. I mean, I suggested things like Dommy to be on the list because I love Dommy. I think it's a great game, and that's put on the list. And some other people might not like that. Some people might think that's a filler game. Then I'll look at the list and go, what's the Flip Shot, the Neo Geo game? Battle Flip Shot's on there. And that is atrocious if you ask me. That's complete filler. And so is Ganryu, the Neo Geo game. And there are better Neo Geo games. But again, I guess that was somebody's favourite, and it's meant to give a broad view of what was available. Shall we stick with Vertical? I think we'll stick with Vertical. One of two games named Argus. Not Argos, the catalogue shop, or the not so shop anymore because they've closed most of their branches here, which kind of defeats the point, but Argus with a U. Developed by NMK, licensed to Jaleco. Two Z80s. Now this sounds weird when you shoot certain enemies. That's a more long-term thing, isn't it, Carlo? I'm glad to hear that, Mick. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this channel, is show things that have been overlooked. And those, yeah, Mech Warriors, a fantastic game that just gets overlooked. Mutant Knight, Riot, yeah, they're all really good games. This is the Argus you have for the Famicom. I didn't realise there was a Famicom port of this Costado. That's another one I'll have to check out at a later date. But yeah, this is an NMK game, and NMK are known for their good shooters, and it's got lots of fancy blending effects. Look, there's a palette blending effect there on the Area 2 thing. And this blending effect, I mean, even CPS platforms couldn't do blending effects. But, you've got a bit of scrolling in all directions, but it's not always a good thing in shooters. I'm not sure it's meant to bomb those power-ups, but... Oh, maybe you are meant to bomb them. I'm not sure what I'm doing this. This is fast and smooth. Okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, unfortunately. But, we'll see how far I get without knowing what I'm doing. There seem to be some meters at the bottom that are building up. It's... got killed by something. Not an original Shinobi then, Mass Ninja. I mean, a lot of Sega games get converted anyway. I thought that was a power-up. Okay, that's kind of not the best graphical design, is it? Even if you buy a Shinobi, there's a fair chance it's being converted from something else. I mean, I think even Sega converted the boards, so very difficult to know. Because you can't shoot those things. I think they come across like the power-ups, but then you try and collect them and you die. So I don't know a huge amount about this game, I'm not going to lie. I just know it looks good. Oh look, there's a little face. And I like the graphical style. It's kind of almost Nichibutsu-like in terms of graphical style. They've got a few, Nichibutsu have got a few early games like this. I think it's the oranges and the blues that do it. Yeah, I got killed by something that I thought I was meant to pick up. I guess, again, you learn what you're meant to do, but you can see the colour blending effect on the title logo there, and so behind it, the area 1. Maybe not NMK's finest work, but I think it's one that's worth looking at. And for a Z80 game, it's got a lot going on and it moves at a fair rate. I say NMK weren't always perfect in what they made. I got killed by something. I think I was meant to shoot it. I got killed. It's odd in the sense that it's a vertical shooter with almost, you know, obstacles. And that's more typically associated with horizontal shooters. But here, I mean, it might be a flying obstacle, but it's still an obstacle. Yeah, you have to shoot the numbers, not collect the... The blending effect is a bit off, is it, Carlo? I thought it was correct. I didn't realise it was a bit off. I mean, Psychic 5 uses blending effects too. I mean, if they're original references, I'll have to have a look at them. But, yeah, all these earlier hardwares with blending effects just make you wonder why the likes of, you know, Neo Geo and CPS ship without any blending whatsoever. I guess it was some sort of ability to display so many sprites without having the performance costs of having to manage read, write, read, modify, write, or something like that. But I don't know. It's always impressive to see them in early games, though. So I should probably just try and play it like a more basic shooter instead of trying to be fancy and trying to go for all the things that are going to get me killed. Also, auto-fire might help here. I sense you can fire a lot faster than I had hitting this button, as is usually the case. Obviously, you've got your laser, which is for the ground targets by the looks of it. Is iRobot joystick? I think it is. Or is it trackball? It might be one of those cases where they've excluded it based on controls. I can't remember what control it uses. I know it's perfectly playable on a keyboard, so it's not like if they'd included it, it wouldn't be playable. But yeah, Altered Beast is kind of a bad game, isn't it? It's iconic, but it just doesn't play that well. I mean, you can say that about a lot of games. I mean, most people will say the arcade Shadow Dancer is far inferior to the Mega Drive Shadow Dancer. Same with eSWAT. You know, they've got a far better home version. And again, that's something I say I'll probably look at on another stream. Maybe I'll somehow factor into these April alternatives. Maybe I'll do it in some other stream at another time. But there are a lot of cases coming up. Manshovel was asking me to look at Blades of Steel a few streams ago, and I played the arcade version, but then I played the NES version a week or so ago, and the NES version is so much better. Oh, here we have a boss, look. Ooh, these bullet patterns are unusual. I guess I've got to break the target here. Yeah. I think because you've got full movement as well, it does make it a little more tricky. Yeah, I got hit by something. Yeah, I mean, it's got great graphics and it's got that, you know, rise from your grave speech, which everybody remembers. Doesn't play that great. It recycles the character a bit too much. I mean, the bear comes up twice in different colours, doesn't it? This game's full of fancy effects. Look at this name entry. They did like their effects. NMK. So it says Jaleco, but it's an NMK developed game. Yeah, it's probably why they excluded iRobot then, but like I said, there are also games on there like Galaxy Force 2, and that's definitely not plain joystick. But, you know, I didn't make the lists. There must have been some level of assessment of how well does it play without the original controls. So I play most stuff on keyboard. I'll sometimes use a mouse. So if I can play them badly, I'm sure somebody else can. Obviously, I recommend trying to use the closest to original controls where possible. iRobot has a centering function. Okay, I mean, MAME has a centering function. I know joysticks could be odd things, couldn't they? I mean, iRobot has the paint program in it too, which is, you know, unique. You know, they were that impressed by getting 3D graphics at that point that it's like, let's make a 3D paint program too to play instead of the game. Again, this is Atari being very innovative for the time. But yeah, I mean, iRobot is a good game that I think due to the yield on the components didn't see that many boards produced because most of them didn't work up to, you know, the standard required. So yeah, I think this just feels more like a cross between an NMK game and a Nichibutsu game. I'm not sure why. Now, one thing I did notice with the list is how many Namco games aren't on there. There's so many classic Namco games that are missing entirely. So we'll probably look at some of those in a bit. But, yeah, I quite like this one. I think this could be on the list. It's one you'd have to spend time with and learn. I'm really curious about the Famicom version and the NES version, because I didn't know that existed. But it's a decent game. Is it filler? Is it killer? Is it somewhere between? Probably somewhere between. Bit of slowdown on the boss here. Now, this isn't the only Argus game. I might look at the other one too, because I don't think either is on the list. I died with one thing remaining there as well again. I mean, Mass Ninja is fine to like Altered Beast. So I don't hate Altered Beast. I had Altered Beast on the Mega Drive. It's kind of, I wish I'd got Sonic with the Mega Drive, not Altered Beast. But again, it had something about it. It had a mood about it. But yeah, say the first Mega Drive games I got with my second-hand Mega Drive were Altered Beast and Ghouls and Ghosts. Now, Altered Beast was okay. Ghouls and Ghosts was, you know, that was a fantastic port. I mean, it's full of bugs. It really is full of bugs, that port, but it's still a fantastically playable port. The Ghouls and Ghosts port. Sinister, yeah, that does use a 49-way stick. As does Blitz, which is on the list, although Blitz does have a joystick option. Run, coward. Sorry, let me just check the lists. The lists, the chat, the lists of messages. Welcome to your doom, yes, Mass Ninja. There is something about Altered Beast. The presentation is top notch. And the game design kind of does stand out as a bit different. I mean, there aren't many games that will make you repeat a level like that until you've got the required power-ups to fight the boss. So, it has that about it. I think it's once you know it, though, I don't know, there's not that much to it to me. I think it's an important game, an important part of Sega's history. And yeah, the arcade version and Genesis versions are far better than the Spectrum version, or the Amstrad version, or any of the home ports of the 8-bits. Right, now I'm going to play one that I first looked at when I was compiling this list. And this one is from Sun in 1981. And that is Funky Fish. Now this runs on the same hardware as Kangaroo. Kangaroo is on the list. Probably shouldn't be, because Kangaroo probably should be marked as not working in MAME. Because Kangaroo's protection emulation is not perfect and you get far too many points and extra lives and things. But Funky Fish is not protected. I can imagine you're talking about a Sinister turned up loud. Yeah, Sinister with the voices. Also, Altered Beast turned up loud would actually be really intimidating too, with the Welcome to Your Doom and everything else. It definitely has a place in arcade. Now, Funky Fish. Kangaroo is okay. I mean, I like the fact it's a platform game with multiple levels. And yeah, I mean, I think it's got its flaws visually. Hey Christian, thank you for joining. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Right, so this, it's got a radar at the top. It's got sort of bigger enemies that are shown on the radar at the top. You have to dispose of the bigger enemies. In this case, you dispose of the bigger enemies by killing the little enemies. Does this remind anybody... And then, yeah, you get this for a little while and you can recharge your fuel. Does this remind anybody of anything? No, there's a very famous game that this instantly reminded me of when I played it. Yeah, Fantasy Zone. That's what I was thinking of. But this came way before Fantasy Zone. So it's one of those games where I'm thinking the designers of Fantasy Zone probably played this. It seems there's too much to be just coincidence here. Waves of smaller enemies, bigger enemies to take it out. Okay, I'm playing really badly this time. I have completed this. Also, Fantasy Zone, I believe, is not in the list. I'm going to have to double check that. But, yeah, this has got... I mean, you can't shoot these things directly. You have to shoot the enemies and then collect the shell. What am I doing wrong here? I was fine playing this earlier. You shoot these, they turn into cherries. You pick up the cherries, you eat the cherries. I leave them too long. You eat the cherries. And it tells you how many more you need in the corner. Then you stand over that, you get more fuel. Right. Oh yeah, they turn back into enemies after a while. Okay, I didn't realise that. That's annoying. This is actually a lot of fun. And I don't think I'd ever played this before doing the research for the stream. So, yeah. I don't know how, if this gets a bit dull after a while, but to me this is a game that could easily be on, you know, a list of a great game, mate. A list of great MAME arcade games. It just has that prototype Fantasy Zone feel to it. Yeah, there's no bombs, and you say you don't destroy the enemies directly, but you're still clearing off big enemies from a radar, which is kind of the key mechanic in Fantasy Zone. And the smaller enemies attack. It might not hold up long term, but in terms of a game you might have a quick blast of and enjoy, I put this up there. And I think you look at quite a few Sun games and you see that. I mean, they've got Route 16, which again is good fun. There we go, round 2. I mean, Costado, it's a decent starting point list. That's what I'll say about it. It's probably a better list than a lot of other lists I've seen where people have just overloaded that. I mean, I've seen other lists where people have just put every Neo Geo game on there and every CPS2 game on there. You know, and those lists aren't much fun. This list, which a lot of people are using, does give you a good variety of games. But the thing is, there are so many good games, and it's always so subjective. There are things going to be missed. And this is probably one of them that I feel could have been on the list. It's a very, obviously got that very 80s look. It's 81, it's a very early game. Alright. It could have been in my underwater stream as well. I mean, I guess it's a fish. The background's not blue, but it's a fish. Oh. I don't think there are many other games like this in the 80s. In fact, I don't think there are many other games like this at all. I mean, I wish there were more fantasy zone type games. I'd love to see Cave do a fantasy zone type shooter. You know, where you scrolling left and right with bullet hell mechanics, but also trying to destroy the bases. I think that'd be fantastic. But no such thing exists. So to see a game with similar mechanics that I hadn't heard of before, I hadn't played before, impressed me. And again, these streams are as much about that, me doing research. I mean, I might know 90% of what's in MAME, and you have to tell you the game name from the screenshot. If you give me a list of like 10 possible names, I'll tell you, oh yeah, it's that game, because it'll jog my memory. But there are always ones that I haven't actually sat down and played before, and this is one of them. I could tell you if you told me, gave me a list of game names, this was probably Funky Fish, because I can see a fish. But I've never sat down and played it. And it's good fun. I think you just need the Q-Sound HLE file, Carlo, which means you're probably running a main version before that without all the Q-Sound enhancements. Q-Sound sounds so much better in MAME. Oh, I've got a different mechanic here. Q-Sound sounds so much better with the Q-Sound HLE file because it's using the real table from the Q-Sound device to give the full 3D effect. I mean, it's night and day if you pay attention to the effects of play on headphones between the new Q-Sound emulation and the old Q-Sound emulation. You're missing out if you're not using the updated files, Carlo. But yeah, the HLE file is just the updated, the internal ROM. It's used for HLE because we're just using the tables from it. There is a LLE option, but it makes the games barely run at 100% speed on, you know, my 4 GHz machine here. So the LLE low-level emulation version is not enabled by default because it's just too demanding and a bit buggier because there's sync issues between the CPUs. But yeah, the Q-Sound ESP is actually really powerful. It's more powerful than the rest of the CPS2 system. Nice accent. I think I've just got a fairly ordinary British accent there, Joe. Yeah, I don't think many people saw this game either, Joe. It does seem to be an uncommon one. It glitched a little bit there, maybe. I guess, yeah, maybe it's just part of the background. Now, this almost dig dug-like mechanic, where I'm throwing things away and just extending a tongue. Have I evolved as a fish here? This seems easier than the first levels, oddly. Whoa, I wasn't paying attention on that view. But yeah, Funky Fish. I think you just need to find qsound_hle.zip and just shove it in your ROMs folder. I don't think Derby's close to Liverpool. I wouldn't say that I have a Liverpudlian accent. It's just a very Midlands accent. It's sort of neutral, a little bit of a mix. Not especially Queen-like posh or anything. It's just to me, it's a very neutral accent, but I guess that's because it's my accent. You get extra fuel by going over the things you destroyed. I think I've just positioned myself incorrectly, but I don't think it's a bug, unless it wasn't giving me extra fuel when I was correctly positioned. In which case, maybe it's a bug that I need to look into. Maybe there is protection nobody noticed, because nobody played the game that long. I don't know. You see, your fuel is draining at these times, but when you don't do that... I do seem to have a slight visual glitch on that stage too, but when I'm over this, my fuel increases. And my score increases. So, I'll have to review the video. If it wasn't increasing in that position, then maybe there's a slight emulation issue that needs looking at. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Funky Fish. I quite enjoyed playing that. No, Connor, I'm not American. I get that quite a lot, though. It surprises me because MAME was, you know, traditionally a very European-centric project, with Nicola being Italian and a lot of European devs taking part. It's only, you know, obviously Aaron is American, but there are a lot of European devs, and I'm one of them. The fuel wasn't increasing with the tongue part. Interesting. If I was a Scouser, you need subtitles. That is probably true. Or, you know, heavy Scottish accent or anything like that. Bug is a dead giveaway of the Midlands accent, is it, Santeri? Maybe I meant to use the tongue to increase fuel on the tongue part. I don't know. Otherwise, I might have to look into it. I was slightly confused why there seemed to be slight graphical corruption there too. I hadn't ever played it that far before. I'd only played the earlier parts, so I'll have to have a look. It seems to be an incredibly uncommon game, so I'm hoping there's not a more serious issue there. We'll see. It might just be I'm playing it wrong, like when I was playing Combat Hawk and didn't work out how to refuel there. Now, if anybody's seen the movie Rubber, where there was a tyre that was the main star of the movie, you might be aware of the game Radical from Nichibutsu, where you play as a tyre. And this one is horizontal, so I'm going to have to change the view. I always think of it as a vertical game because it scrolls vertically, but it's a horizontal game. Now, a lot of people said that Nanineyo cat game was a hack of this. It's not. They're a completely different game. But let's have a look at this one then. The Bounty is a sequel, Carlo. Believe it or not, Orca did 2 river-type games. They're very similar, but the Bounty is a sequel to it. So here, you control the tyre. It's probably the only shoot-'em-up I've ever played where you control the tyre. And it's one of those where the Japanese version's actually got a few differences, so I'll have to look at that in a bit. You can jump. I think the Bounty and River Patrol are potential ones for this stream as well, or one of these streams, not necessarily this one, because we looked at River Patrol last time out. But yeah, the Bounty is one of those that's where the original version has got a protection module where there's code inside the CPU module that's not dumped. So I think the parent set that works might be a bootleg, or if they made unprotected versions, the unprotected version. Radical Bikers, yeah, that's another one that I could cover at some point. It's not on the no filler lists because it requires custom controls. I mean, it's quite a tricky one to play on keyboard, to be fair. Not impossible, but quite tricky. There's quite a few Jaleco games missing because they weren't emulated when the list was made. So Thunderhoop 2 is not in there either. I can't crash into those. I mean, yeah, it's surprising given how small the place is, how many different accents there are. I mean, I can't easily name all the accents. I'll hear an accent and after a while I'll usually filter it out. unless it's really heavy and I just can't understand it. Because that does happen over here. There are accents that are really difficult to understand. But yeah, I can't blame you for not knowing the different accents. I mean, even Nottingham's quite different to here in terms of word choice, and it's just not the same. And people do end up picking up the different accents very quickly if they move areas, and you get such a mix of accents. And I've been in Derby, you know, all my life, so mine is very much Derby accent. Maybe not typical Derby in some senses, but it's difficult to know. I mean, I've been told I sound very posh at times, too posh to be from Derby, and I don't know why. Geordie is very difficult to understand. If somebody goes full Geordie on you and makes no effort to try and compensate, you don't stand a chance. It may as well be a different language. Same with some Scottish accents. So yeah, I don't really understand the second phase. I seem to have gone from tyre on a road to tyre in space. Or... Yes, that is a wheel shooting at things, Cow. It's a tyre. A radical tyre. Because, you know... I want to say this was the 90s. This was the 80s. Apparently radical was a thing in the 80s. Maybe it's radial. As in... it says radical... radical radial. That's... yeah. Not radical radial. I mean, I associate the word radical with more of the 90s. I mean, you've got Radical Rex on the Mega Drive and things like that. But, yes, this is a tyre shooting at things. Or a wheel shooting at things. I'm going to give this version one more credit. You notice the background here, the purpley thing, the road texture. That would change when I put the Japanese version on. Now, I think this is a decent early shooter again. Don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. I think if you played this in the arcade, you would probably remember it for being the game where you control a tyre or a wheel. Yeah, kind of fun. Jumping over things, it's fast paced, you're dodging things. I just don't understand, because you can't shoot on this section, you lose your ability to shoot, so it becomes more of a dodge 'em up. Yeah, it's the same for me in American accents, really. I can identify there are different ones, and in watching many YouTube videos over lockdown, I've sort of just seen how many different ones there are. I can't tell you where they're all from, or the nuances of each accent, but I can tell there are different ones. I sound very posh to Echo. I don't know why that would be, but yeah, they've gone full on with the theme here for the player shipped. Oh, oops! I'm not meant to be changing views. So there's a Japanese version which was licensed to Logitech, unless Logitech developed it and licensed to Nichibutsu, but I don't know. So yeah, the theme's different. You've got a very just pink background on the first stage, which you'll see shortly. So I don't know really why they changed the theme around. Yeah, you see the background's pink now, not textured. Otherwise it seems to be basically the same. I'm reading the chat, not looking at the game. Sorry if I've missed anything. Just check. And then, no, I'm not offended, Bob. I mean, I can understand it. It's not very clear if you're not from me. It's not very clear to me anyway. You know, I can't name accent easily unless it's like a very heavy Brummy accent. Those are kind of, you can spot them a mile off. And then even within London, you've got so many different accents, and that's just one city. Big city, but there's still a lot of different London accents. Yeah, Radical. I think this could have been on the list as an early shooter. It stands out as having, you know, this unique gimmick that you retire. Even though, you know, it could have been a car, it could have been just like bump and jump, but they went with a tyre. Like I say, if you watch the movie Rubber, this could also almost be a tie-in game. I'm sure if the movie had been out in the 80s, this would have been somehow connected to that. But, none of the London accents sound like Dick Van Dyke, though. Why were the different versions of the same game with different level layouts? Cobra Command and Rambo 3 come to mind. I don't know, Carlo. I mean, sometimes the level orders were changed. Sometimes the layouts were completely changed. I guess it was all based on feedback, what different markets were going to respond to. Some of the versions we have in MAME could even be prototypes, so we don't realise are prototypes. There were quite a few games where the game was entirely changed between games. In fact, maybe I should look at one of those now, because it doesn't appear to be on the list. We're back to our friends at Data East. And this is one of the earlier games that was added to MAME a long time ago. I think it's vertical. Hold on. So this is Tomahawk 777 or Tomahawk 777. This could have also been on my watery themed stream. As you can see, it is a shooter with enemies that kind of look like, is it Astro Fighter? I don't think the sound emulation. Oh, there's basic sound emulation with Space Invader sound. Let me turn that down because that's obnoxious. It's got discrete sound on the original hardware. 4-way joystick, move up and down, move left and right. You can't move diagonal. Shoot the encroaching enemies. Okay. You know, note there's a water level. You can go to the top of the water, almost the top. It's and the water level decreases because apparently the ocean is being drained. I'm not really sure. It's a simple shoot. I want to say space shooter. It's not space shooter. It's an underwater shooter. The enemies do develop this new pattern when they touch the surface of the water. So, you know, that's how it's designed. Once they're underwater, they do the sound effect that's the UFO sound in Space Invaders. It's probably not the correct sound effect. It's a problem with a lot. So many early games in MAME have completely the wrong discrete sounds because the PCBs and tracing. I was looking at SNK's Osmo Wars, and that plays the obnoxious beeps most of the game because the same reason. It's using a Space Invader soundboard when it probably didn't have one. This has got a bit too much slowdown for my liking. Anyway, the main point of this was what you were saying about games changing a lot. Yeah, it is probably a battered toy submarine. You're right, Rob. It does have that impression. Give that impression. It's not bad. So many companies wanted to do submarine shooters back then, though. There are so many of them. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't really know why. Maybe it's like, what's the best alternative to the space theme? Let's do underwater sub. I don't know which the first was. I think there were ones dating back to the 70s with a submarine theme. Probably just a popular theme at the time. Oh, I got hit. I wouldn't go that far, cow. In Metal Slug 2, the times it is not slowing down are memorable because they're so uncommon. In the Hunt was excellent, Santeri. That is probably the best of the submarine games. I'd say In the Hunt and The Deep, Run Deep are probably my top two submarine games. But In the Hunt is, yeah, In the Hunt deserved a sequel. I'm surprised there wasn't one on the Neo Geo with Nazca moving over and doing the Metal Slug games. There are underwater sections in Metal Slug 3, but none of them are quite on the level of In the Hunt. But yeah, we were looking at different versions of games. So this is the parent set of Tomahawk 777. That is apparently revision 5. We also have what is called revision 1. We don't have revision 2, 3, 4, or any others, but we have this one. It kind of looks different, doesn't it? So now there are things in the sea, and there's a few enemies at the top that are moving in a different formation. It's basically a different game, but it's apparently the same game. And I'm surprised this isn't a cassette system game, because we talked about in the cassette system streams how Data East love to, change the game between revisions. They still got loud sound effects when they hit the water. But yeah, this doesn't really seem like the same game at all. The presentation is entirely different. You've got the ground moving along the bottom, because it's trying to give the impression that you are actually moving along in your submarine rather than stuck in a bathtub. And the sky is blue. The water is still black. Why did that one have different frames per second between the sprites and the road? I guess just the processing power. They could afford to update the road at 30 frames a second or the sprites at 60, and they just went with it. You find some games that alternate the sprite update with the road update and things like that to give the sort of impression they're 60 frames a second when they're not. So 688 Attack Sub is good, Mick. That's the Mega Drive one. Is there a game that in its childhood ended with a coin? I don't really know what you mean, Messenger. I remember Dizzy Games had you collecting coins and finding all the hidden coins at the end of the games on the Spectrum, which was kind of the worst part of the games, because you had to check every single position in the game to see if they'd hit a coin behind it, with no indication. I mean, they could have at least given you a metal detector at the end of the game to find the coins, but no, it's like, yeah, you're going to have to try and pick up every single piece of scenery. As much as I love the Dizzy Games, that was bad design. Yeah, this version is harder. This version, you can tell this is an earlier version because it's not as much fun to play. But it was asked why games change so much between revisions, and I really don't know. In this case, I guess the feedback was this isn't very good. Change it from the sky into the sea. I didn't read the other line because it disappeared too quickly. Yeah, I've not played 688 Attack Sub. I played Silent Service on either an Amiga or an ST. It might have been an ST. I did know somebody with an ST, so I can't remember if I played Silent Service on the ST or the Amiga. That's the only sub game I played extensively when I was younger. And that's more of a strategy game. I didn't have to use trigonometry to my knowledge. Although I didn't realise you had to use trigonometry in 688 Attack Sub either. And yeah, Seawolf was probably really popular, Rob. So I think, that whole war and everything else was in people's minds, and submarines and war, and it's just one of those things that evolved, and everybody wanted to try and do the best submarine game, I guess. But yeah, that's probably not one I spend any time playing with. I can understand why that one's not in the lists. It's just not very good. I could probably go with another game of submarines. No, let's not go with another game of submarines in it. Hey, let's go with the Konami game. Konami game I have never spent much time with. Black Panther, 1987, by Konami. Now, hands up in the chat if this is a Konami game you are familiar with. It's a little bit loud. Anybody play this before? Anybody even knew this was a Konami game? Because I kind of thought this was probably just a bootleg of Black Tiger or Black Dragon, but apparently it's not. You may have started once by mistake. Yeah, unfortunately, Messenger, I can't understand a word of Spanish, so there is a little bit of a communication barrier there, but it's okay. If you want to try and explain it in some other way, then feel free. Is this a rubbish game, Carlo? Did this make it to Japan? Did it make it to the US? It's not listed as any specific region. January 2001. Wow, 20 years ago. Lightning effect. So very fast-paced. Now, I have not played this one before, so I don't know what I'm doing. So I can do high attacks, I can do low attacks. Okay. I have to jump through the okay, that's not good. Can I jump on things? Does that hurt me? Apparently that hurts me. I have a health meter on the left, which apparently increases when I pick things up. Now the controls feel a little bit laggy. I'm going to say that for a starter with this one. Konami did have quite a few really obscure games that never get mentioned. That might be for good reason. Do you have to tank? So you don't fight. It's almost like a side-scrolling, flat-plane beat-em-up with a claw attack that's really limited range. So you have to hammer the button to not die. I think you lose sound for a minute. People won't believe me if I say this is a Konami title. Yeah, there were quite a few Konami games I could say that about. I might cover some more of them on some of these streams. Scooter Shooter, anybody played it? Anybody know anything about it? It's one I emulated, in fact, Scooter Shooter. And it's completely under the radar. This is very mashy. I don't know who this feels. It definitely doesn't feel like a Konami game, but it doesn't feel like a game by anybody else either. It doesn't feel like a Data East game. Definitely doesn't feel like a Sega game. But yeah, that's nasty. Why does swinging my paw sound like a laser erratic? I don't know. Why do I have a high attack and a low attack when nothing seems to matter? Also, what is that that's killing me? Is this Donkey Kong barrel? What's going on with this? Okay. And I can pick these smaller ones up the same colour as the ones that are just killing me. Yeah, I'm not convinced by this one. I hadn't played it before. You can't jump backwards. The controls are very awkward. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think this one's not on the list for good reason. Attack power, what? Hey. I don't know what I did then. This reminds you of Manimal TV show. Oh, okay. The continued screen is very big, chunky numbers like Contra, if that helps. What's this thing? It's bouncing all over the place. Does this game even work properly? Probably. Literally, it jumps from the ground up into the air. Then these barriers... What the heck is... See, now I know it's going to jump. It's so unresponsive. Really unresponsive. I have 3 health though. Yeah, it's very bland, isn't it, Aaron? Or Aaron. Sure. It's bland and it makes no sense. Is it Aaron? Is it Aaron or Aaron? Yeah, this doesn't feel like a Konami game in the retro plays. It's not even, look how plain that sprite looks. Is it a 4-colour sprite for a boss? Player 1 power 0. Aaron's right. Okay. I thought it was Aaron. Sometimes I get confused. And, okay. Let's just charge into it until we die. So yeah, I can see why people might not be familiar with this one. It's not very good. See, this was meant to be alternatives to the games that won this, so I was trying to cover some good ones. But there are also going to be some bad ones. And I think we can agree this does not belong on the... Oh, we're going to start the boss over again. So where do I attack it? I don't get this. If I bump into it, it does damage to me and it. If I just do this, it does nothing. Okay. My cam is frozen. Oh. Hold on. Let me try and fix that somehow. Hopefully this doesn't break everything. Okay. Nope, that doesn't fix it. Let me quit the game. Yeah, I think there's something weird happened with the stream at one point, didn't it? Right, sorry, let me just try and get this sorted. Deactivate. Activate. Now the colour's all off, but it works again. I'm just... I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to let it run and sort it out properly later. Yeah, I've had to... I don't know why the colour's off on the camera now. It's like it's not calibrated properly or something. Yeah, the code is so bad it broke devices outside of the emulation. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the camera there, or why it's overly bright now, but it'll have to do. Anyway, yeah, Black Panther. I can't really put it on a list, can I? I can't say it deserves to be on a list, unless I'm missing something with it. But you get such a small hitbox for your attacks, and you get hit so easily. I wasn't enjoying myself with it. I'll say that much. Anyway. Hey Tony, thank you for joining. Good to see you. And same for everybody else who I have not welcomed individually while trying to play games. Right, so there, let's have a look at something else after not being overly impressed by that one. Now, I think I'm going to go with, I think it's a vertical game. An 80s game that I actually really enjoy. This is Spiders by Sigma from 81. Another very early one. Sounds not perfectly emulated. Yeah, makes sense. It's on the top list of... I mean, I don't think anybody applies for gaming jobs at Konami these days anyway. Sigma Spiders. Play Spiders. This is a creative early shooter. Kind of got missile-y command feel to it with the, you know, the lines coming down. Everything's worth dumping at Erratic, even just to study the flaws in it. I might go back to Black Panther and play it again. Yeah, the frame rate on my camera's gone funny too. It's not started up in the same mode it was in before. Hold on. Let me try and fix this properly. No. It's definitely got confused. It's not wanting to turn back on in 60 frames a second mode. It'll have to do. Anyway. Right, so what was I was going to play Spiders. So yeah, let's play Spiders. Let's ignore the odd camera issues and just play Spiders. That's a big spider. It's getting bigger. It's getting even bigger. If you don't like spiders, I probably should have said look away earlier, shouldn't I? We have been eaten by a spider. Let's coin it up. That doesn't sound like spidery music. But there's your score table. The groanable cocoon. Okay. I believe this is kind of bitmap based as well, which is why the scaling of the spider was slow, because it's actually drawing a huge bitmap. You've got to shoot the pods that appear to stop the lines drawing down the screen. It's sort of controlling the growth going while shooting other things. And I really like this one. Also bootlegged as Spinner, but Spinner's obviously quite a generic name. Yeah, some I've best forgotten, and maybe that is probably one of them. Like I say, if I want to do an all filler list, that is more of a potential, potential entry. I'm not going to condemn it to that status just yet. I might play it again and enjoy it, but my initial impression of Black Panther was not great. Whereas this one is a very careful, aim carefully shooter. And these things will come down to try and get you. Ooh, just missed that one. And again, this one stands out as just being different. So there's some big explosions, some big graphics. So I'll happily play this one. Yeah, the lines block you too, you have to be careful. So this to me feels more like maybe a Taito game than a Sigma game. If you asked me blind who developed this, I would probably have said Taito. It feels almost like something they'd put on an enhanced Space Invaders hardware. It was not. Yes, sorry, I'm going to turn it down a little bit. The explosions are quite loud, aren't they, Mitchell? Sorry. Oh, there we go. It's a bit quieter now. Nice old noise. It's probably analog sound circuits generating the noise channel you hear there, which is maybe not something we appreciate as much these days when it's just noise. Just hurt our ears a little bit. It was probably meant to hurt your ears a little bit. It's like, you did bad, you exploded. Don't do it again. Otherwise you'll hear this explosion once again. But, I just like the way the lines curve around. Yeah, it's like bacteria multiplying, Colo. Yeah, I don't think it's bad sound design. It's just in your face in terms of the explosion there. It's got a little ditty between rounds. It is marked as imperfect sound, so there are likely some sound emulation issues. I can happily play this one and enjoy it. I like these slightly more strategic shooters. And that's how I describe this one. You're not mindlessly shooting everything. You have to aim your shots and know which ones to shoot at to stop them sort of, you know, these webs going down to the bottom. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Space Cyclone, although it's obviously a very different game. Space Cyclone is probably also missing from the list because it was a more recent edition. So, yeah. Let's give it another credit. And see if I get a bit further. The white spider's worth a lot of points. Look at that. Look at how many more points the white spider is worth. What was the Metal Gear arcade game, Mitchell? Was it just like a gun shoot, or was it a proper Metal Gear game? I've not played it. Sometimes these arcade adaptations aren't really great. They just take a simple part of the game and turn it into an arcade game. I always thought that, you know, there should be a Grand Theft Auto arcade game. There's the white spider. Oh yeah, big bonus. Well, a lot of the early 80s games did have, you know, discrete sound, discrete samples, because they evolved from the purely discrete hardware, the ones that had no CPU at all, and they'd got established sound circuits to create certain effects like explosions, and they just reused them. The technology they already had, rather than investing in, you know, dedicated sound processors and learning how to use them, they just went with, we've developed these sound effects for previous games, previous hardware, we can reuse them. And that's what they did. So you saw many of the sound effects on these early boards because they'd been used in even earlier boards where everything was like that. And, you know, dedicated sound ICs were very expensive then as well. There we go, another big bonus. It's definitely not a cave ship now. I seem to be doing a lot of vertical games today. But yeah, this one to me is a game that could be on your top list. I see the scores change between rounds too there. That's an interesting feature. You've not got rapid fire either. You can only have one shot on the screen at once, so don't waste it. Oh, I don't know what it means when it changes colour like that, but... yeah, this is simple joystick buttons. Could have been on the list. It stands out to me. Look, I can't think of any other game with this exact gameplay. Oh, I survived. Yeah, 2,000 points. Okay, that feels incredibly out of place. But there you go. I'm assuming it doesn't turn into one of those games. I've never played it that far. But now the white spider is worth 2,500 points. Yeah, I don't know why I just have somebody winking at me. Oh look, we've got a different attack going on here now. Yeah, satisfying hit sound effect is always important in games, Bob. You're right. Just that explosion, something being hit, some positive reinforcement that you've done something right, as opposed to, you know, when you don't hit something right and you get no sound effect. They did have to carefully consider the sound on these because they very limited in what they could do. Yeah, I'm not going to play too much of this one. It's got a steely Jian vibe. It did look like Morticia Adams, didn't it, Bob? I will agree there. But, you don't get picked up by laser beams well, like you do in Gallagher now. There we go. I got the top score. This is bitmap based hardware, I think, Carlo. Not Carlo, Christian. I seem to remember that's why it can do this that fade effect, and why it draws the spider quite slowly in track mode is because it's drawing to a bitmap, although don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. Yeah, it's for an 81 game, it stands out above the other space shooters. But again, you've got this whole line drawing, which is only really possible if you've got bitmap hardware. There's no time-lapse or anything to view, no graphics to view, no tiles decoded. So yeah, this will be using bitmap-based graphics, like Space Invaders, but more colourful. It's an impressive game for 81. Again, Sigma did a few back then. They're one of those sort of forgotten companies. Okay, so Cave was mentioned earlier. Now Cave are famous for games with bees. But Cave were not the first ones to use bees. Have you ever played Savage Bees from Capcom in '85? This is a bee-based shooter. This was also known as X's, which is a terrible name, but Savage Bees is a good name. Not the bees. Not the bees. Yeah, X's. X's. What's an XX? Is that like when you get back with your ex? What does that have to do with this game? Savage Bees makes more sense. I mean, look at the honeycomb patterns. Look at it. This is clearly a bee-themed game. It needs bees in the title. I'm not saying it's a good game, but everybody just thinks bee shooter, Donpachi, Donpachi, Cave. This is way before Cave, and it's a bee shooter. And it's also not in the no filler lists. I don't know if it's a especially good game. I mean, a lot of these early shooters are average. Nice little effect when the ship was rebuilding there. I clearly died on purpose to show that off. Odd choice for music. It's kind of got an electronic nature sound to the music, which I guess fits with a bee theme. It's like, actually, I really like the sound design. My ship seems far too slow. But yeah, why call this XXs? What sense does that make? This is clearly about navigating around things. High point area. And skulls. Yeah, it's a very creepy, unnerving electronic nature sound. I actually really like it. Again, not one to spend much time with, but I did notice it was a bee-themed game that wasn't a cave game, so I thought, yeah, that's going on the list of things to look at that maybe should be considerations. You know what? So far, I'm thinking it could be. The ship is far too slow, and your up and down movement is far slower than your left-right movement, which is kind of odd. I got power up. Yeah. Once you get used to how you move. Maybe for the time it was released, it was a bit dated. I mean, this wasn't one of the earliest shooters, was it? Or was it? I don't know. Kind of. It's still fairly early. It's not long after, say, 1942. And then, my choice of power up. Oh. And my boss, the boss is the hospital? I'm not sure. Give you a headache soon. Getting a Xevious vibe. Doesn't play like Xevious. That start that I missed is very slap fight. Hopefully Namco won't translate their music because we know what Namco are. I think this is actually a really well themed game. It's probably not going to mix it up too much, so it might get dull after a while, but that's the case with so many of these early shooters. I mean, look at 1942, it barely changed across the course of the game. Yes, Savage Bees. I think this is definitely a contender for something that could have been on the lists. It's a shooter that probably not many people have played. With a bad name outside of Japan. Well, I don't know, I'm assuming outside of Japan. This is the Memetron license, which is an unusual continue feature, okay. Not straight boot you out the game, not checkpointed. Don't know if XX is checkpointed, but this isn't. Bomb seems completely useless. I mean, I'm not going to give it credit for an effective bomb. It doesn't seem to destroy anything. I'm not sure what the point of the bomb is. And yeah, there's a good parallax, good 2 layers here. They're probably just both time lapse. It's probably fairly simple in terms of the hardware. I'm just wondering why the bomb is so useless. I'm assuming the high skajek is the name on the high score table, because otherwise skajek makes no sense unless this is a specific localization. Speed up. Yeah, high score is Jack, so high skirt Jack. There's just no space in the text up top. No, Bob, you are not completely useless. The bomb clears the bullets on the screen. That's unusual, isn't it? Yeah, as Santari says, the game is licensed to Memetron, not Memetron, Memetron. Yeah, I kind of quite like this one. I'm not going to play too much more of it because, like I say, it might give people a bit of a headache. But yeah, it's seems playable to me. I can see that being on the. I seem to be mostly focusing on older games this stream, so it's not intentional choice. It's just kind of how it's ended up. Okay. Now, Arcanoid returns. I'm gonna have to check the volume levels on this one. So hold on. Nope. Okay, is the volume at maximum? Yes, it is. That's all right then. We're good. Again, it could be accents as well, Bob. Right, Arcanoid returns. The original Arcanoid is also not in the list. I'm going to turn this up slightly, I think. Hold on. Because Taito, 3 games are quite quiet. The original Arcanoid is not in the list on the grounds that it uses... actually, I need to enable mouse, don't I? Spinner controls. And the original Arcanoid probably isn't really playable without spinner, let's be fair. This one actually offers in service mode the option between joystick and spinner. I'm using spinner because it's Arcanoid and it makes sense too. But it does offer the option, so I think potentially this one could be included in the lists with their strict rules. But I've never been convinced by this game. I'm going to play it here because it's not a bad game. It, executes the Arcanoid formula perfectly well. It just doesn't really add anything to it. I think it's my main complaint with it. Also, it's dough time. Yes, it is Aconnor. It's also not pay attention because I'm reading the chat time. So, I think the main thing that doesn't make sense to me with this game is why is it horizontal? It's horizontal with borders. The gameplay is vertical, so you've basically just got, only using a small part of the screen. And the same complaint can be issued, say, to the original Puzzle Bobble, because again, that's only using a small section of the screen, and that could have been vertical. I think a vertical Puzzle Bobble would have been fantastic, but it never happened. But Arcanoid, the original game, was vertical, and this is still designed to be a vertical game. You lose some screen space by it being rotated, resolution. Not too much because it wasn't the highest resolution game in the first place, but you lose some space. And it's not like Neo Geo. The F3 system that this runs on had plenty of vertical games, plenty of vertical shooters, so it could have been done as a vertical game. I don't really understand why it wasn't. It doesn't need the extra width for a two-player mode or anything like that. It just has to be Arcanoid, and Arcanoid is a tricky game. Yeah, it's horizontal for no reason. No reason at all. I don't know if there were plans to do something different with it early on, but it doesn't benefit from being horizontal. Maybe Taito just thought there were more horizontal cabs out there, but if somebody was wanting to upgrade their original Arcanoid to something new with an F3 system, they're going to be looking for something that runs vertical, not another horizontal game. Unfortunately, it does require absolute concentration to play these games. Now, I do like the coloured blur effect on the ball here and everything else. So we've got the usual... Oh look, we're sort of in a loop. Not an infinite loop, it will break out of it eventually. When I'm not paying attention. The original Puzzle Bobble wasn't on Neo Geo. There was a B system version, but the Neo Geo version is the version that everybody knows. The B system version is practically a prototype. I mean, it's not even got complete code for the other regions. It ends up, Bubble Buster or something outside of Japan if you hack it, but that requires different sound ROMs that we don't have. Otherwise the sound's messed up. The Neo Geo version is the widespread release for the original Puzzle Bobble. And yes, that was one thing that came to mind too, Bob. Maybe they were aiming for it to be a home game and therefore they didn't want to commit to vertical because vertical games on home systems didn't really work well. I mean, look at Twin Cobra 2. There's a Saturn port and it's got horrible forced vertical scrolling when you move up and down and things like that. I mean, I think it does have a tape mode, so you can switch it to run on its side, but yeah, it didn't. They don't really translate well to home systems. So yeah, it's possible they had home systems in mind with this in '97, I think it was. So arcades were starting to die out. It was a long time ago now. You know, they were on in their decline when MAME started already. Now, one thing this game does have going for it is the soundtrack. It does have a really good soundtrack, although you might not hear all of it over the boop 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 boop. But Arbelman did do a video of the soundtrack from the test mode when the sound emulation was improved recently, and it significantly improved recently. I mean, the previous times I played this, before the sound emulation improvements, it didn't really even have the soundtrack going for it. So it's got that now. The backgrounds add nothing to it. It's like Bubble Memories, where they've gone for realistic looking, or images rather than patterns. It's not the strength of these games in the first place. Yeah, all Neo Geo except one of the NG dev team releases, horizontal. I'm surprised. But I guess SNK didn't want Neo Geo booting with a a logo that looked wrong or something like that. IDS didn't care. You've got the PGM2 games like Dodonpachi 2 where the logo is on the side during the boot. But maybe SNK didn't want that. Maybe they wanted to make sure every game could run in a cabinet. Apart from Rotating Maze, obviously. In the same cabinet, apart from Rotating Maze. I don't know. I think there should have been some vertical. Neo Geo games. I think it would have been a better platform for it. Although, I mean, it was a successful platform, so I can't really criticise it. It made SNK the money they wanted to make until they went bankrupt. I'm bad at Arcanoid. At least want to get to the background changing. Pardon me. You miss arcades almost as much as the ton of cash you spent on them. That is often the case, isn't it? You could get hooked on a game like this. I mean, you want to see the next stage, you keep putting in coins, and you realise, oh, I spent a lot of money. Not as bad as the gambling ones where you lose your money in an instant most of the time. My reactions are not good for this type of game. It does have a 2-player mode, but it's not 2-player versus, it's 2 players on the same playfield. Now, there was what I've got in my notes as a horizontal hack of Arcanoid 2 that I might look at some point. Unless my notes are incorrect. It's one I emulated a long time ago. It's definitely got Arcanoid's sound program. But we'll see. I probably won't cover that this stream because we've done this for an Arcanoid game. Although there are a lot of Arcanoid games. Arcade's died, Dreamcast and Soul Calibur. I mean, yeah, the Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast was a big improvement over the arcade because the arcade was enhanced PlayStation hardware, really. Enhanced, sped up. I mean, it's not really enhanced. It's just arcade hardware with a high clock, and obviously ROM-based media. But yeah, the Dreamcast version of that was very impressive to look at. Not my type of game, but I can see why you'd be more impressed by the Dreamcast version than the home version. Gigas is yeah, I like Gigas. I mean, I prefer Omega, the slight variation on Gigas that was dumped a few years ago, because that lets you curve the ball from the start, so you can have fine control of the ball, and you wave it around. And in Gigas you need the power to do that. But yeah, Gigas is solid. I was really surprised to find out that the glitch that happens before the levels in Gigas happens on real hardware, at least on the board that was tested, which might have been a bootleg, but it's likely it just happens on real hardware, where it just displays garbage for a frame or two. So that's a strange bug to leave in, but apparently it got left in. I'm assuming the background does change on this. I mean, on round 6. Again, that's probably one of the things that put me off. I mean, I've got to round 6. It's been a struggle. I've used so many credits already, and still I'm looking at the same image. It's a good alternative. I mean, the background doesn't add anything to the level. I'm assuming around 10 I'll get a different background or something. But round 10 is a long time to be playing one of these games. I think some of the design choices here weren't the best. It could be on the list. It's solid enough, and it does have the joystick control option. Oh look, we've got a snail. Is it a snail because this is a slow level to complete? Is that the meaning of this because it's got all these difficult to destroy blocks? I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it, as I do with many things. Missed. 30 credits in an hour or two for Sega Rally. Yeah, it's easy to get carried away, isn't it, Casper? Very easy to get carried away. Especially when something is as impressive as a lot of these arcade games were when they came out. So I just want to see more of it. I want to see the next stage. I want to see something else. I think once arcades did lose their edge in terms of technology, yeah, that's when they really start to die out. As mentioned, Soul Calibur, the Dreamcast version, just eclipsed the arcade in terms of visuals. I've got the gun, haven't I? There we go. Yeah, Darius Gaiden is a great looking game, and it's still not perfectly emulated either. There are definitely glitches in the F3 emulation still that need to be fixed. I think Darius Gaiden X is probably also glitchy on real hardware though. There's some code in that overwrites the line tables, and it looks like it probably does it on real hardware, but that was sort of an unofficial hack that may never have been in arcades, but it's very difficult to know. It's described as an official hack, not an official sequel. Very difficult to know. I can't shoot the gold ones. No. See, I'm still in the same background. I hope everybody is not overly bored by watching this. There we go. Right, round 10. Changes background. So every 10 rounds this will change background. I think it could have been done with every 3 rounds. Then you need more ROM capacity for the backgrounds. I don't know. It's Arcanoid. It's a solid enough Arcanoid game. It just doesn't do anything special, and it should have been a vertical game. That's my feeling on this one. Pardon me. If you're not going to include the original Arcanoid in the list, then yeah, this could be in the list. It's perfectly good. It's just not special. I have a feeling this got ported to PlayStation and Saturn, but I'm not 100% on that. You'll have to look it up. Yeah, you're a bit bored with that one, Carlo. I'm turning it off now anyway. Where shall we go next? Now, I mentioned... I've got such a big list of games here that it's quite difficult to find what I'm looking for. I should have probably preferred this earlier. Prepared this earlier. Yeah, PlayStation Turtle. Yeah, I thought it did. I'm not sure about Saturn. It feels like one that's probably Saturn worthy, but it's always difficult to know with the Saturn. So where am I going to go? There are a lot of good games on this list that aren't on the list in question. Okay, I'm going to go with an IGS game. And a beat 'em up that deserves more credit that gets the Gladiator, Road of the Sword. I'm not good at this game, so don't judge me on playability. Section Z. I don't know if Section Z is on the top list. Let me just check that briefly before we jump into this one. Might not be. I'll check it in detail later. Section Z is definitely a potential. Road of the Sword. Now, to me, this is probably IGS's best work. Pushy Carrot. Yeah, or Carrot. Yes. It's also very similar to Ghostlop and that type of title. I was almost tempted to cover it in the Taito E stream, although it's not a Taito East game, because to show the similarities. You say Z, I say Z. Yeah, Section Z, Section Z. I'll check after this one if it's on the list at all, and if it's not, then I might have a look at it. Now this is a beat 'em up with Street Fighter-like moves. Although you have to pick up the moves as you go along, the combos as you go along. It's quite a short game. So auto combos for the beginner, there's advanced combos. But yeah, let's just coin this up. Now the Japanese version, this actually has really different music and entirely different sound ROMs. If you play the Japanese version with the wrong sound ROMs, it's a complete mess. Unusual in that sense. That doesn't usually happen because things like sound ROMs are finalised early, but you do get it now and again. It happens with Buster Move again on F3. Yeah, this is an impressive beat 'em up. I mean, IGS really stepped up their game with some of these PGM games, and this is one of them. Yeah, IGS was from Taiwan. The Portentous Sword. Easy path. You've got multiple paths, you know, easy path, normal path. Let's just go with the easy path. It starts with a right to left scroller on the easy path. Yeah. IGS.com.tw is the, well, it was the official site, it might still be. But yeah, this is sort of a mix between your Street Fighter mechanics and your beat 'em up mechanics. You've got combos, you've got moves. It's like Martial Masters, IGS did as well, but with a beat 'em up style gameplay. And you do pick up moves along the way and combos along the way. You've got your list of combos you picked up there. It's a hard game because it's not a long game. Well animated. It does feel something. This feels like up there with Capcom's quality to me. And IGS did a few like that. This, you know, Oriental Legend 2 on PGM2 is equally high quality. They made a mark, I would say, with these. This game is really good, Christian, yeah. I mean, you have to learn the moves, you have to master it. I mean, I'm not going to be showing a good demonstration of play. I think I uploaded a video on my channel from one of the mock replays of the game being completed because I wanted to demonstrate some emulation improvements I've made. But yeah, it's... see, lots of enemies on screen. I'm doing really badly. It's also impressive in a technical sense that they put the arm protection chip in the cartridge, but instead of just using the chip for protection, the entire game runs on what was the arm protection chip. There's a few games like that, but this is one of them. It's probably why they switched to ARM entirely for PGM2 and got rid of the 68K. But all the 68K in this game is doing is processing the display lists from shared memory and putting them to the video and everything else and reading the inputs. So the actual game and everything else is running on the ARM protection chip. Yeah, it's... I mean, obviously Capcom were a huge influence on IGS at this point in time. And SNK. It's why when I look at, let's say, the King of Fighters game on PGM2, I think that must have just been the pinnacle for IGS because they always wanted to be SNK or Capcom, you know, clearly they looked at SNK and Capcom with a lot of respect and wanted to be at that level, and they finally got their own, well, support of KF98, but still it's still a King of Fighters game, an official one, on their platform. They say dead people don't talk. Now it's only press B and C, so I don't really know what B and C always does. Because yeah, there's a jump button. Yeah, this is a game you can easily one credit clear if you learn it. But there are a variety of modes too. There's sort of a boss fight mode. There's different paths, like I said. There's secrets. Completing certain things within a certain time limit will unlock different paths that you go. So even if you think you've credit fed the way through the game and seen it all, you probably haven't. But I think that's why it's quite short to play through if you credit feed it, because there's so much content you don't see. So many little secrets. And with this level of production, you can't have that much quality and that length of game, otherwise it just ends up being one of those games that ends up never being released because the budget gets out of hand. a tall lady posture. I should have beat this boss already, but yeah, if you can actually combo things properly as well, it's much easier. I'm obviously not comboing anything right now. I've got it on beginner auto combo. I've died on the first stage. That's really bad. I'm just not good at this type of game in general. I don't know the strategies. I'll look up to people who can play them properly and learn them. And that's why I'm impressed always when I see the one credit plays them. There we go, we get the very dramatic black and white outlines of the sprites there. Again, it's presentation. And it was really good with this one. Move to the second stage. I don't want to spend too long on this because I'm just so bad at it that I'm probably going to give people a bad impression of the game when I'm trying to show that it's a good game. And yeah, this deserves to be on any top list to me. It might be a later game in the arcades, I mean what, 2001, 2003 even. But that doesn't make it a worse game. It's a perfect arcade game. It wasn't ported as far as I know to anything, so unless you're playing it on the PCB or in MAME, you're not going to play this game. See, there's little secrets all over the place that I don't know how to access. Clearly this is something on the floor here. Yeah, it's similar to Knights of Valor, but I mean, Knights of Valor is IGS too, but this is better animated than Knights of Valor. The production values are higher. I mean, Knights of Valor almost made it. Then they came out Knights of Valor 3, which was kind of ugly and a bad game, if you ask me. So, Oriental Legend, at least with Oriental Legend 2, they reached sort of the same level as this game. But Knights of Valor, once they got to Knights of Valor 2, they just kind of kept reissuing it and never reached this production value with it. Cat watching. Anyway, I'll probably get to boss on this stage, then move on, because I just wanted to put this one on again as a game that really should be on any top list. Yeah, it tells you the moves in the top of the screen. And just really well drawn, really well animated, plays well, lots going on, lots of movement, plenty of enemies. And it just looks nice. You get so many of these games at this era that were just pre-rendered horrible art. And while they played well, they didn't look nice. This looks nice the whole time. There we go. You see, I've got this move that I can do something. We've already been going for 2.5 hours somehow. About another half hour maybe. I've only covered a fraction of the list. You've got a good effect here with the things in the foreground, background. So, I mean, it's not a real transparency because the hardware doesn't do real transparencies, but the resolution is good enough that the illusion of transparency works really well. Especially with the CRT filter. Now, yeah, there are a lot of repeated enemies, but you get that with every decent game. You can't have a unique enemy for every enemy. But it's not too bad. Like I say, the game is not one that outstays its welcome. Oh, you still want to kill us all? Yeah, the translation needs a bit of work. It's not the worst translation. I mean, if you want bad translations, I can probably throw Semicom's cool minigame collection on in a bit, and if you know what to do on the minigames, you are better at understanding the very rough translations than I am. Okay, throw you around a bit. Anyway, Yeah, I'm going to turn this one off now because I think you should just want to experience yourself really, and I'm just not good enough at it to give a proper impression of it. Vertical shooter time again. This one is Noboranka by Coreland and Taito. What are you doing? Cats are being cats. This is an early cute 'em up. You're climbing a tree, you're shooting things. Everything is very cute. Sort of a bug creature person. Let's call him up. This is on Sega System 1 hardware of all things, which is an unusual place to find a Data East game. Or, you know, I don't know. It's an unusual case. No, the Atomic Wave Knights of Valor is really bad. It's one of those horrible mixes of high resolution, low resolution. It just doesn't work out. I think that was, you know, IGS trying to do things on more standard platforms rather than their own, and they don't really have the developers to do 3D or high resolution, and it just ends up looking very, very rough. Yeah, don't avoid the scores, I think. Now, if you're playing this in earlier versions of MAME, the sound will probably die on level 2 because it actually resets the sound chip between stages for some reason, and if you don't reset the sound chip, you just never hum sounds. Very odd. But again, it's probably because it's not programmed by Sega and it just does things in a different way to the first-party games on the platform. Aside from being bad at it, this is actually one of my favourite System 1 games. You can usually make it to stage 2 without losing my lives, but yeah. It's got that kind of perspective thing on the tree as well. The spiders on the sides are using different sprites to the ones in the middle. Yeah, it's System 1. You can tell it's a System 1 game from the look. I always like these creative continue screens too. Yeah, what was it? Coreland and Data East. I mean, Coreland did a lot of stuff for Sega, so I don't know why Sega didn't publish this. Oh, you got your fly-up thing, which doesn't actually give you invulnerability. You can still die. But the way the creatures go around the tree reminds me of sort of, you know, the towering Nebulous and things like that. But obviously Nebulous is better animated in terms of being proper multiple sprite perspective, whereas this is like you're on the edge, you've got that sprite, you're in the middle, you've got the sprite, you're on that edge, you've got that sprite. It's still an effective look for a climb up the tree game. I don't remember it being this difficult. Nico, what are you doing? Alright, thank you Christian, and I'll see you on the next stream, or if you manage to join it, or whenever I see you next. But thank you for joining. As always, it's always good to have a chat, and take care, look after yourself. Let's ignore the fact I'm really bad at this game apparently. Maybe I played the bootleg version before, maybe the bootleg version is easier. Or maybe I had it on an easy difficulty level. It's a dip switch. Apparently it's on easy. That doesn't make me feel any better about my performance here. Somebody's been kind enough to draw on the tree that I have to go up and I can't go back down. Road signs on the tree? Yeah, why not? I do like these cute shooters, you know, your Twin Bees. Also, Twin Bee is, I think, one that I can potentially cover. Maybe it's a little unkind that some of the things you shoot drop the skulls that kill you, but... No, I can just fly up, like I said, a little bit. Can't overuse the fly thing. Yeah, Coreland did a lot of things, actually. Pengo was one of the big ones. Coreland worked with many developers. Coreland worked with Konami a bit too. I want to say that WEC Le Mans is Coreland related, though I could be wrong there. Yeah, there are multiple stages to this, which I kind of want to get to before I move on. But if my performance doesn't improve, I'm probably not going to. Yes, this one to me absolutely does belong on any top list of games you're going to play in MAME. It's cute, it's got great music, bright, it's colourful. It's got that I want to give it another try even though it just beat me. Play again. Appeal to it. Doesn't feel unfair. Probably one way, if you take your time, it's easier as well. What I tend to do on these streams is I'll try and rush through the games rather than take my time to kill things. Yes, then it became Bandai's Banpresto. Yeah, and they did Le Mans. I had a feeling they did. One of those developers that you kind of just forget developed the games because they were sold under better known brands, manufacturers. Okay. Tough game. Maybe I just need autofire. Maybe I should have put the autofire on. The shots kind of follow you as well, which makes it harder. Maybe if you use the leap up, you avoid the shot. I can't actually remember. The problem is it's been so long since I've played this game extensively that I can't remember the mechanics, which is going to be the case for many games you see on these streams. I would have played this last a lot, maybe 5-6 years ago. Let's try again. Pardon me. There's also a timer pushing down at the bottom if you've not noticed. The timers have a way of making you panic in games, which is probably what they're there for. But the way things leap out really quickly is frustrating. I can't fault the game. I mean, if you ask me if I want to play Black Panther, or if I want to play this, I would want to play this every single time. I like the way the edges of the screen have different mechanics as well, because you're not climbing the tree. So you have to use them in the right situations. I'm probably not going to get to be on the first level, am I here? Let's be honest. I'm as bad at climbing trees in real life. This screen reminds me that it loves me. I should keep going regardless. I can't even cheese it that way. So I am making progress slowly, and I'm still wondering how I used to be able to complete the first level of this without dying. Alright, Santori, take care as well. Sorry, I missed that message earlier. Take care. Good seeing you as always. I'm very good at not seeing messages, unfortunately. I sort of read the most immediate one, then scroll back to the rest a bit later. Okay, I'm not going to complete the first level. It's a good fun game. But it's tough. It's a little bit tough. That's what I can say about that one. Okay. we're doing 80s. Boggy 84. Kaneko 1983. Now, for a long time it was said the original version of this was Boggy 83 because it was a 1983 game, but we've never seen a version called Boggy 83. We've only seen Boggy 84. Hey T-Dog, how you doing? Thank you for joining. The kanji on the tree says effort. It was certainly effort. Like I say, it's a good game. So yeah, this is a fairly early Kaneko game. A little bit ugly. But let's coin it up and give it a play. 8 monkeys giving me bonus points. 7 keys. There are multiple ways to complete it, really. I can't get that there. I have to go up. You can kill those. Now, it wraps around with the scrolling as you'd probably expect it to. You can go down those. You know, up there. And I can get hit by a monkey. Now, this is one I played extensively when it was ended. Look at the little execution light guy down there. You stand by those, you go up. Oh, I think you can't spray the monkeys, right? I can't remember everything about the game. Spray the execution guy there, you see. Go up here, go up here, go up here. Don't jump into the monkeys, that's a silly thing to do. Okay. Yeah, apparently you can jump into the monkeys from underneath like that, but it requires a bit of learning. I mean, I think maybe the problem with this game is it's not 100% intuitive. And maybe you need more game to be more intuitive if it's this type of game. But once you get the hang of it, and that's the same for so many games. When I was looking at you know, Peter Pepper's Ice Cream Factory, I said the same thing. It's a great game once you get the hang of it. If you don't get the hang of it, it's a difficult game. And you can't jump on top of people, you can only attack them underneath. Or we get spray pepper. You can't attack those from underneath, you can only attack those with the spray pepper. So you learn how the different enemies can be addressed. And once you've worked that out, you do much better. Although in that case, yeah. Now, I remember enjoying playing this a lot, which is why I wanted to look at it. Right now, I'm sort of struggling to find that feeling of why I really enjoyed this, so again, I'm trying to spray monkeys when I'm meant to jump. Now you have to press the button when you're in the right place on those things, it's quite precise. It's kind of easy to see why this was not one of the super popular platform games, but it is a decent game once you get the hang of it. And there are multiple stages, which you may now see. How you doing anyway, T-Dog? Now at this stage, you know, the gameplay slightly changes. You're moving up these ramps, which again it wraps around, you've got to collect the letters. The monkeys are sliding down, so the monkeys will soon be up on me. Really hitting from below. Now this stage, to me, should probably have been the first stage, because this stage is actually a lot easier and a lot more logical. I say that just so I die, than the stages that came before it, which we'll now have to play again. I'm glad to hear that, T-Dog. If anybody else is in the chat and wants to say hi to T-Dog, and anybody else who's arrived recently, then please do, because like I say, quite often are you trying to concentrate on the game and miss messages and what's going on. And the community here is, you know, it's a good community, and it's, I think it's good to see people chatting and welcoming people. Oh, monkey. There we go. See, once I've got it, I've died again suddenly. You see that face a lot. That face is probably going to stick and become permanent, as I say. The joys of being terrible at most games. Ah, I missed you. Get sprayed. Yeah, not the most creative character in the world. But these multi-stage early platformers, I have a soft spot for them, although that was a little bit unfair. I think because it's a bald guy, it always reminds me of Bond's Adventure, Bones Adventure. This is getting to my almost ready to rage quit face. I said I like this game and this game should be played. Although I'm realising now, on headphones, just how annoying the sound design is on it. Maybe in terms of early Kaneko games, I actually prefer Jump Con, which I might have to play on another stream, because I'm pretty sure that one won't be on the list, because it was more recently emulated. Can I jump over both of them? I don't have to. Come on, come on, come on. Ooh, just. I can't think of anything with a screen wrapping slope level. I mean, I think that's probably quite creative for the time. There probably are some, but not ones I know. So yeah, you get the keys and you take them down to the bottom. So again, it's got different gameplay elements. It's definitely not like straight Donkey Kong or anything like that. Question mark teleported me to the top again. That wasn't useful. I think after this stage it loops, from what I remember. So, Arabian, which you enjoyed playing. Yeah, Arabian is pretty good. I think Arabian is on the list, though I'll have to check. I mean, it might not be. Quite a slow scroll in the name entry here. I guess they liked their scroll effect. Well, yeah, I think this is an alright game. The sound design isn't the best, and it might not be anything special. But it's playable. If I saw this in an arcade cabinet and there was a Donkey Kong next to it, I might go and play this one. No, I've seen enough of Donkey Kong. I want to see what this one has to offer. I think it's cute. I like the way that the monkeys are sliding down the sort of waterfalls here in this stage. I like the art design. To me it works, and like I said, in the past I've had a lot of fun enjoying this one. And so I can't really say anything bad about it. Apart from maybe the sound design is kind of not the best. It plays well. It's fair. And if you've not played it, yeah, give it a try. Boggy 84. Boggy 84. Okay. Puzzle game time. This might be the last game of the stream, or the penultimate game of the stream. We will see. Bal Cube. Or probably should just be called Bal Cube, but Bal Cube 96 Metro. Yeah. Anybody played this? It's a Arcanoid style game, really, where you control the ball. Visually, it's reminding me of sort of Kaneko's magical crystals with the coloured shapes. Let's credit it. This feels like a Namco game to me. But you've got your level layout on the right, and you've got your immediate playfield in the middle. And you've got to not die. So every time you hit the bottom, the thing below you vanishes, and you bounce the ball up. You've got full control of this ball cube. And you bounce on the blocks, you hit your power-ups. And this is probably one of my favourite games on the Metro type hardware. I'm assuming you're doing sound effect there and not screaming just at the game in general. Vanish. That is not product placement, that is just make everything vanish. Stock is nothing. Different shape pieces send you off at different angles too, so that, you know, you've got that strategy involved. You've got the bigger blocks at the bottom that when you hit them, more of the bottom playfield will vanish, and difficulty builds up. It's a game that gets off to quite a slow start, which is maybe one of the issues with it. You know, it helps if you've got a strategy to keep the ball up in the air, especially once it starts to get more tricky. Level 3. Change the music for the level 2. See what's going to happen with the pattern. Yeah, every time you hit the bottom, it drops the pattern down the row. And again, there aren't any other games quite like this. So I would like to continue. And if I'm trying to create a top list of my own, I always want to try and include games where you're going to experience something you wouldn't have otherwise experienced. And this is always one of those. And I was very surprised this wasn't on the list, because I would have thought somebody would have recommended this. But maybe this didn't have any ports. That might be why people are less familiar with it. I mean, I'm not aware of any ports. If there were any, then let me know. Ooh. Just get a little bit manic when you get to the bottom at the end of the stages and everything's really low down. Now I'm sure there's advanced scoring techniques to this that I'm not aware of at all. I mean, it seems quite plain on the surface, but I'm assuming that there is more to it in terms of scoring that I've not yet dissected. Your power-ups there. Reader 5. So it really doesn't play anything like Arcanoid, because you're not controlling the bat, you are controlling the ball. Or the ball cube, or the Bal Cube. Get it in the gap there. Start at the start of the level. Looks like Brick Game 9999. We need to emulate those Brick games at some point, but unfortunately I think they're all single blob. There's so many of them. The funny thing with those Brick games is, you know, it was planned that Tetris would be a Game & Watch, but Tetris never ended up being a Game & Watch. So those Brick game things are almost like the Game & Watch that Nintendo never made. I mean, Tetris would work as a Game & Watch, as they proved, so I'm not sure why it didn't get a Game & Watch release in the end. Game & Watch Tetris, I think, would have probably been one of the more popular titles. Pinball more than Arcanoid. Possibly. Yeah, I'm not going to continue playing this. We are on 3 hours. Partly my monitor is going to turn off in a minute. Stop that. Yeah, possibly the sound effect, Bob. ABL, they make terrible plug-and-play games. Let's not enter ABL as initials. So, there's probably time for one more. Don't know what to play though. I've not missed any suggestions in the chat, have I? It's on the Android store. Brick Game or Bal Cube. I mean, both would surprise me. Brick Game probably more than Bal Cube. What shall I have a quick look at before I end the stream? There's so many games here. Say some of these, like that one, that would absolutely be on one of my top lists. No question about it. Some of them have been terrible. That one I enjoyed. Why aren't some of these on the top list? It's confusing. Right. So, as a final game, I'm going to look at Bongo. Bongo has become incredibly popular in the last few years. Lord BBH plays a lot of it on his channel and streams. And you know what? For a 1983 game from Jetsoft, running on Galaxian hardware, this is good fun. Might seem really cheesy. It might have a terrible sprite. Brick Game's on the Android store. Okay. Apparently Brick Game got everywhere. I mean, I'm assuming it's just a port on the Android store, not an emulation. Brick Game is you're being chased by the dinosaur. You have bonus objects to pick up without losing your life. It's kind of Hunchback-like. Bongo is not Congo. Bongo is good fun. Dodgy walk animations. It's one of those games that manages to be fun despite the fact it really, really shouldn't be. And I mistimed the jump and died. It's got dodgy collisions, it's got dodgy animation. And I'm out of practice and dying very easily on the first stages. Okay, this was just a warm-up credit. I beat the highest score of the day. I don't need that many letters, thank you. I will end. Let's give that another try. So yeah, Bongo. This is actually, like I say, it's actually a really good platform. It doesn't look the part, and the initial impressions are not good. But it is actually a real test of skill. Get your jumps right. Get your timing right. Clear the screens. You know, that was a tight time. Really get the crown. There we go. And down we go. There you go, you get the bonus. Arcade games that look like home computer games. That is entirely true. Although, it runs at a nice smooth 60 frames a second, which most home games didn't. But it's not how they look, is it? It's if they're fun to play, and Bongo is actually fun to play. The dinosaur's coming up behind me. Now apparently this does get to a point where there's a kill screen from what I'm told. You're being chased more quickly than you can get away. And the high score communities and everything for Bongo. It's become a very popular game in recent years. I think because it does get that pure arcade gameplay just about right. I mean, it doesn't really look the part, and it's definitely got its issues, but it is what you want from an arcade game in many senses. Missed the item there, never mind. And there are many games that do this concept but do it far worse as well. I mean, if you look at Hunchback, I mean, Hunchback's a similar concept but not as much fun. So that's why I thought I'd end with this one, because it's a game that probably nobody really saw back in the day, unless you just happened to be probably one of very few arcades that likely installed this. But it's one that has since become a well-loved game, and not without good reason. Yeah, Mass Ninja. Not the most original music, is it? But again, a lot of these they weren't. They just go with your classic tunes. Let's give it another credit. Well, after this credit, I will be ending the stream and realising that there's a lot I haven't covered yet. I think also the jolly tune persisting throughout the game helps. It sort of sets the pace of the game as well. It keeps pushing you forward. It's not the only Jetsoft arcade. I mean, there's Cavalon as well. Cavalon. Yeah, the collisions on some things are maybe not the best. That's maybe one of the slightly more irritating sides to it. But yeah, I'm not great at the game, but I can't complain about the game. You know, for a 1983 game from a company nobody really remembers. Even the little intro there, it's like, I'm going to climb this hill. No, there's a dinosaur there. I'm going to run away. It just works. It's just enjoyable. Well, yeah, that's a tiny fraction of the list I have here, and I mentioned there's loads of Namco games that aren't on the list, and I've not even covered any of them. So there's definitely going to be a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. It'll probably last me the rest of April, depending on how often I stream, just to look at some of these games that aren't on the lists. But I hope everybody who has been watching has sort of enjoyed seeing these games. You know, some were bad. Black Panther for a Konami game is terrible. Some were good, like this one. And there's been ones in between. Ones that probably should be on the list. Ones that aren't on the list for reasons of controls. But that's what I want to do with these streams is show those off. You know, show the things that people maybe are deleting or not playing because they're just focusing on that list and thinking those are the only arcade games that matter. When they're not. There's an absolute wealth of games that are not on that list, and these were just some of them. And yeah, thank you, Nick. And yeah, I hope you do go and try a few of them. And yes, the Ogre, that dino is kind of awesome. Badly drawn. The whole game is like that. Beware, you are being chased by a dinosaur. Looks like somebody in a dinosaur costume. It's fun, and that is where I'll end it. So, good night, everybody, and I will see you next time. It's gone midnight here, so I will definitely see you on another stream. Thank you, Aaron. I see you too. Thank you to everybody, and thank you to everybody who's just been watching on, catch up. So.